580 Sports Talk coming to you on a Tuesday. Overcast, cloudy skies here in the capital city. Hopefully it gets a little bit warmer. Jake LeBon, Brendan Dorzinski, Dan Lucero with you. A very happy Jake and Dan, courtesy of the Seahawks last night.
Cashed in a little bit.
That's what I'm talking
Also, they're
about.
my favorite team, and they won, and that makes me feel great.
That makes me double happy, too. Finished third in my big, giant pool that I'm in, courtesy of the Hawks.
5-0 week in the 580.
Nice.
That is back-to-back weeks that we have had a 5-0.
Welcome to the club.
Thank you very
Welcome to
much.
the
It's exclusive. There, we had a meeting earlier. There was cake.
Yep.
It's just two of us right now, though.
Out of three.
Just two of us. Yeah.
Two of us out of three, which is a great ratio considering there's only three of us.
Right.
And two of us have made it.
We're just waiting on a third. We'll see if we'll see if we get a third to join us at some point.
Judging by picks previous, doesn't look.
Yeah, look at a little crib.
Oh, okay. All right, last place on a 4 from a year ago. Let's settle down here.
Who is that? Is that me?
Yeah.
Hey, I won the thing that year. I can talk my time.
Hey, I won Survivor Pool last year and the year before that. Back-to-back Survivor Pool winner. Yeah. No big deal. We got a lot to get to. We'll talk a little baseball today. J.J. Picollo spoke to the media. I like what he said. No, this is not me.
It took one day. No. Mark it down. It took one show.
Not
optimistic. Jake is back for the Royals.
Not yet. But he said the right things. We'll get to that coming up at the bottom of the hour. We're going to talk a lot of Chiefs, including offense, wide receivers, random question. Jordan Foote's going to join us. A good old overreaction, proper reaction after the weekend that was in the NFL and in the college world. And Michael Swain will join us. So we got a lot to get to. Let us know your thoughts. Hit us up on our text line, 785-272-9429. Easy to get to, as well as our YouTube page. Very simple. You go to youtube.com. If you've got kids, you definitely know about YouTube. And then type in 580 Sports Talk, 580 Sports Talk. Very simple. Hit the subscribe button. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section.
I feel like YouTube at this point is like a big enough and long-standing enough thing that even without kids, most people know what YouTube is.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you that the people over the age of 60, they still might not know.
I don't know about that.
I have grandparents in their 80s who watch this show every day. So just so you know.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, my parents.
Shout out to your
past that threshold. They know YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. My mom has like playlists of music she listens to on YouTube and stuff.
I can tell you this. If I did not have kids, I don't know if my parents would. They would know of, I can watch video on my phone. I don't know if they would have known it's YouTube.
Okay.
But they do because I've got kids.
Now, see, I would argue that maybe the older you are, the less you know about the fact that like people make their entire careers just making videos all the time.
I do not know that there are a whole lot of 60, 70, 80 somethings who know like who Mr. Beast is.
I'm 29 and I don't even really know who he is.
I have no idea who that is.
Why are you even asking me? You know the answer.
I don't know. I don't know if he's making content for 4-year-olds.
No,
I see.
have no idea.
His name pops up all the time.
No
He's
idea.
always in the news for something.
No idea.
I don't know what he does.
No idea.
He's like famous for being famous. He's like Paris Hilton.
Yeah,
at this point.
That's the new way you get famous. You used to have to make a sex tape, and now you just make a bunch of YouTubes.
There you go.
I think you can still make a sex tape and get famous.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just saying the door's a little more open.
Yeah.
Some of us don't have the option to make a sex tape and get famous off of that. But we could all maybe do what Mr. Beast does, like whatever it is that he does. I don't know what he does.
No,
I don't know.
If anyone knows, help us out.
Well, we are going to get to something that from the text line. I was waiting for this. 65 here, still like radio over YouTube, but I'm trying. Hey, that's all right.
Hey, no,
that's all right.
Appreciate you giving it a shot.
And this is not a shot at the older people because I asked my sister-in-law, who is 23 years old, how do you dial a rotary phone? She didn't know. She said, you just push the button, right? And I was like, no, you got to push it and then circle it all the way back, and you got to make sure that it catches on the the hook thing. I know it's got a name for it, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, man. Rotary phones were cool. My parents had one of those in their bedroom for a long time.
See, now that makes me feel, because we never had a rotary phone at home, but I remember, like, as we went on some field trip to like a place that it was like an old house. Like, here's what houses were like 100 years ago, and we learned how to use a rotary
Here's
phone.
what houses were like in 1984.
Yeah. So
wow, this cord is so long on your phone.
Yes.
You can almost go into the other room.
Okay, we got some stuff here. See, this is why the text line. We love the text line. We love the comment. My kids introduced me to Mr. Beast. Check him out. Not terrible.
The ultimate vote of confidence.
No, but that's
not
like
terrible.
But that's how like a lot of people describe things. That's not terrible.
Yeah.
The world's most subscribed to YouTube gives a lot of money away.
I did know that. I knew he gave a lot of money to charity.
He's giving money away.
Whoa. Does he give it to charity or does he give it to people?
I think it's both.
Because if he gives it to people, I'm going to be starting to
I think it's both.
He's giving it away to one particularly disadvantaged group called the Charlotte Hornets. He's actually going to sponsor their jersey patch this year.
Mr. Beast is?
Yes, his he has a brand of snack food.
Does he really?
Yes.
See, that's like a thing now. The people who've gotten huge on YouTube, which is not yet us, but if you want to help, if you want to go subscribe, 5G Sports Talk on YouTube. Like, the Paul brothers have their own energy drink.
Which, by the way,
apparently would like kill a small horse. Don't
drink it. Like, I'm not like pro other stuff. All I know is that their energy drink, which is called Prime, has enough caffeine in it that is three Red Bulls.
A video
in one. That's like 3 Red Bulls in one of their drinks.
A video about that stuff has gone viral enough that the small children my wife teaches, were like quoting it around the classroom the other day. And she asked me what it was, and we had to look it up together. I was lost.
Man, kids love that stuff, man. But like 8 Cokes in one of those drinks.
Or like one snort of the other Coke.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick to Gatorade myself.
A lot of it. I got
some water.
I got my Powerade Zero as I get in
What flavor is that?
It's purple flavor.
Okay.
That's all I need
This
to know.
has purple in it. Purple is a fruit.
It's purple flavor. Purple
sugar, water, and of course purple.
Purple.
I want some of that purple stuff.
It's purple. Yeah. I want to know right now the number of games in which this is who you are in football. We say how many in baseball?
It's about 40.
40.
That was Dayton Moore's old rule, right?
Right. 40. Okay.
Yeah.
How many is in football?
4.
Okay.
Because you get the same percentage of games, right?
Okay.
A quarter of the season.
Okay, that's fine. I got no problem with that. If that's the case, the Chiefs' offense right now is what it is. Do you guys realize that the Chiefs have scored over 24 points this year just once? And that was a game against the Chicago Bears. And that game shouldn't count because they've given up 38, 27, 41, and 31 this year. The Bears stink.
They are who we thought they were.
So if you take that out, they've scored 20, 17, and 23.
Here, 23 needs a bit of context.
Okay, and we're going to get to that.
Mhm.
We will get to that. But we're just going with raw numbers right now, which is why we say on this show a lot, don't box score watch, because the Chiefs could have scored and then they would have had 30 very easily, but then we wouldn't have gotten a picture of Patrick Mahomes looking like Jesus, okay?
He's out there.
Yeah.
Was he doing the Megan Rapinoe? Like that was,
I don't know.
It was quite a look.
No,
I thought he was doing Gladiator.
No, I thought he was doing the giant statue in Brazil.
Christ the Redeemer?
Yeah, you look like Christ the Redeemer up there. Yeah. Anywho, here's what the Chiefs scored last year. 44, 27, 17, 41, 30, 22, 40, 20, 27, 30, 26, 24, 34, 30, 24, 27, 31. Okay. So they scored under 24 points in 20 games 4 times. The Colts, Buffalo, Tennessee, and then in the title game against the Bengals. Okay. I'm just going raw numbers here. Okay. Mm-hmm. Just simple back of the baseball card stuff here. Okay. They went under 24 points 4 times last year. They are already under 24 points 3 times in 4 games. And one of those games was because they played the disaster that is the Bears. Okay. So you said 4 games. You said 40 games. It's roughly. So is this the offense? Like, is this what we expect for this entire year going forward? Because 3 games out of 4 under 24 points. And mind you, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense, when he is at the quarterback spot, I don't know if you incorporate this year, have to wait and see. But coming into today, he was averaging 30 points per game. Like his entire 5 years, because this is now year 6, 5 years, they averaged 30 points per game. So we're already below that by a full touchdown.
So I would like to make an addendum to what I said. I would like to change that to, I think after 4 games, that's when you can start making definitive statements about what you are. I think you need half the season to be able to say, this is what we are.
Because 25% is still a small sample size, relatively.
So I think it's fair to say, like, for the Chiefs specifically, right now, the offense is disjointed. I think, you know, if you had said that week 2, I would say, I don't know, we've barely played any football. 4 games in, I think it's fair to make a definitive statement. Now, if we get to week 8 and we have seen no improvement from, you know, Tony is still ineffective. Sky Moore has another 2 games without a catch. Rashee Rice is like a rookie, but he has to be your number 1. At that point,
so you're weak. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to.
I would.
You gotta find the baseline to how you're gonna deal with expectations. So it's 8 weeks.
I would say post week 8, you can start saying you are what you are.
Okay.
So the standard by which this offense is judged is still 2018, right? Because we look out there and we see Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and we think back to the best it ever was, which was, I think, that 2018 offense. And maybe you'd argue 2020 is pretty incredible too, but 2018, that felt like the future. That felt like 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Plus, I think the NFL was just not ready for that.
Yes.
Like, I think that's just as much of that factors that in there. The NFL was not ready for the blitzkrieg that was about ready to happen.
Yeah, and the video game numbers that Mahomes and everybody involved for that offense put up. So it really does feel, and I catch myself feeling this way watching the Chiefs play, that when they don't score, like when they have a drive and they go 3 and out, you go, God, what was wrong with that? What's wrong with the Chiefs? They don't score on back-to-back drives. What's going on with the Chiefs? Well, what's going on with this thing? This thing is supposed to explode. Why is it not, why is this not fireworks yet? Why does this feel like a dud in progress? That's how part of Sunday night felt a little bit. From the second to the third quarter, that was how it felt. Mahomes threw 2 really bad interceptions, really uncharacteristic throws for him, and it felt like things had fizzled out. And then if Mahomes decides that the stat padding is more important than just being able to run out the clock, what we would have had at the end of the night is the Chiefs putting up 30 on a defense that I think is one of the 10 best in the NFL, in the New York Jets. We had a 30-point game on the road in a game where you needed all those points against a standout defense. So when you do that, like I do, I think we're looking at it differently if they had ended the night with 30 on Sunday than with 23. I think then we would be saying, yes, there have been some fits and starts, and yes, the wide receiver group needs some time to maybe shake out, more time than maybe we otherwise projected it might. But this is still a Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid offense, and it's still capable. It's like if, let's say, let's go back to the baseball analogy. If 40 games into a season, George Brett were hitting 230 with not a lot of power. And I'll use him because he's the greatest Royal ever and the most consistent Royal ever. You wouldn't assume he was going to finish the year hitting 230. Now, that slow start might depress the overall season totals, but there's a baseline of performance that you would think over the next 120 games, George is going to get there. George is going to hit 300. George is going to hit his home runs. Patrick Mahomes is going to throw for his yards, throw for his touchdowns, score his points. This offense is going to do Kansas City Chiefs things. Maybe not at that 2018 level, but still at a top 10. And I think at the end, top 5. They'll be a top 5 offense.
And when I look at that, okay, so here are what the Jets have given up points-wise. 16, 30, 15, 23. And if that game went at the very end, they would have given up the same amount as the Cowboys, 30 points. Against the Jets defense, everything's pretty good, right? Chicago doesn't count, right? Jacksonville's given up 21, 17, 37, and 7. And Detroit has given up 20, 27, 6, and 20. So the second, so they're up near the top when it comes to points scored on the opposing teams, when it comes to that. Here's how I will when I saw this, kind of breaking it down and thinking about the offense, I don't really care right now. I am so far in the regular season is a means to an end view of the Chiefs. And is that a good thing for our society? No, it's not. Because if you would have asked the Bengals last year, they went to the title game. Like, there are some people who be like, well, yeah, that was a bad year. I don't think you can say getting to the title game is ever a bad year. Because the title game, you're 1 or 2 plays away, singular plays away from getting to the Super Bowl. Like the Eagles last year. That is not a bad, that's not a bad year. You were 1 play away from winning. That's why, to me, same thing, in college basketball, we love the tournament, but how many times have KU went to the Elite Eight, lost to Oregon, and everybody thinks it's just a disaster of a year? That's it. And that's the problem with our it's
about standards, right?
It's just,
and some teams, some organizations have higher standards than others. And right now, the Chiefs' standard is championship.
And that's why I don't care what happens in week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8. Like, when Alex Smith was the quarterback, regular season games matter because you needed to put yourself in a position. They don't need this right now. Now, would I like for them to be playing well going into the playoffs? I think that's more important than playing well right now. I really do believe.
And
they've got they got 12, 13 more games
13.
to get the offense going. And eventually, I'm with you. They're going to get better. But I want them, if they struggle now, keep tweaking, figure it out a little bit. The playoffs are all that matter. If the offense stinks for the first 17 games this year, and then they kick it in high gear in the playoffs, that's all that matters.
Brendan, you had the stat yesterday about Zach Wilson outdoing Patrick Mahomes in essentially all of the major quarterback stat categories: completions, yards,
touchdowns,
and
fewer interceptions.
And that had never happened to Patrick Mahomes in his entire, essentially, adult football life.
Football or college and pro, yeah.
Do you think that the Chiefs were equipped as a football team to win a game where that happened to Patrick Mahomes until recently?
No. Not even remotely close. Not in 18, 19, or 20.
So that's the spot where the Chiefs are, where if this offense is going to be fits and starts at times to start the season, they've built a defense that is good enough to go win them a couple of football games while the offense gets into gear. That's a little thing that our friend Mitch Holtis and Andy Reid, they both talk about it. They call it complementary football. That's what it comes down to many times. And for the Chiefs, for years with Mahomes, it was the offense has to carry the weight. Certainly in those early years when the offense was so explosive, they have a choice. They had to score 40 because the Bob Sutton defenses were not stopping a nosebleed.
I do think
I'm sorry. I know I violated FCC regulations by swearing on the radio.
I do think it is important, though, to pay attention to trends and the quality of play, even if you're not worried about the results themselves. And I think the best example of that is probably the 2021 season when the Chiefs still made it to the AFC Championship game. They were a half away from making it to the Super Bowl.
Not even a half. They had first and goal at the 5. What the hell? I still can't get over that.
And
where's the second goal?
One of the things that killed them in that loss to the Bengals were self-inflicted problems and mistakes made by people who don't normally make mistakes, including both play callers and coaches and the players themselves. And what had been the major issue for that team that I had complained about on these airwaves all season long? It was at some point, this unfocused play is going to come back and be a problem. Running backwards when you would have gotten first down yardage and giving it up, or the goofy play calling down by the goal line. We all remember the last play of the first half of that game. Fly sweep, Tyreek Hill. Just run a normal play. No, fly sweep, Tyreek Hill doesn't get in. And all of a sudden it feels like, ooh, that feels big. Like you could tell immediately that feels big. Tyreek Hill, how many times that year, I think it was 3, did Patrick Mahomes throw an interception because the ball hit Tyreek Hill in both hands?
Yeah.
And he just didn't catch it, and it popped up and got picked off. Who was it against? It was late in the season. It was a game the Chiefs won. Mahomes does a no-look pass over the middle to Marcus Kemp. Kemp runs a bad route. Mahomes misses on the throw. It gets picked off after getting tipped. Like, there's no need to do that. It was like lackadaisical play.
Mm-hmm.
And in the second half of that AFC Championship game, that reared its ugly head again.
Well, it reared its ugly head because I know I'm looking it up here because I'm still so mad. They had the ball first and goal at the 5. Forget everything. It came down to the goal line situation, which they still are having problems.
Yeah.
They still first and goal at the 5 with 1:30 to go. They were down by 3.
Yeah, score a touchdown, win the game.
You score a touchdown, you win the game.
So my point just being that I think it's okay to say that when you're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, the thing that matters is getting to and winning games in the postseason, and that's when things really kick up. Travis Kelce has said that. He has been very direct and has said that before, which I imagine Andy Reid probably didn't love, but he has said that openly, and he's definitely not the only one who feels that way. But I think you still need to pay attention to what the trends are entering that part of the year.
We got lots to get to. Let us know your thoughts. According to the text line, we would not like Mr. Beast's content.
No, I think you read that wrong.
Did I read that wrong?
It says you guys wouldn't hate his content.
Oh, we wouldn't hate. Okay,
Yes.
the wouldn't hate kind of semi-double negative. Anywho, I didn't read properly. Coming up, we will discuss a trend maybe in the NFL. Plus, we're going to hear from J.J. Picollo on some Royals baseball. We'll talk more Chiefs and their wide receivers coming up in the 3:00 hour. But right now, with what occurred last night, which was the Seahawks making myself and Dan some money by winning, They had 11 sacks in the game. No, hold on a second. You misheard me. I said 11. Spinal Tap would be so excited to watch that game. 11. Is there an O-line problem right now in the NFL? Like, are D-lines that much better? Have they progressed faster? Or is that just it right now? It's just the edge rushers. I mean, Khalil Mack had 6 sacks in a single game.
That's not even prime Khalil Mack, right?
I know he went up against a rookie, and I understand that. TJ Watt is in the backfield every other play. Every other play. We talk about Chris Jones right now is one of the best defensive tackles. And is there an O-line issue, or are D linemen just that much better right now?
It's a fascinating question. And I bet if you ask 10 different people in the NFL, you get maybe 10 different answers or 10 different theories. Last night, certainly what you saw was you saw 2 teams that were dealing with a rash of offensive line injuries, because the Seahawks were down to like 3 healthy interior linemen there by the end of the game. They made it work. They kept Geno clean decently enough, but the guy making the plays was Kayvon Thibodeau, the freak of an athlete coming off the edge who had 2 sacks against backup tackles for the Seahawks on either side. The Giants were down their left tackle. Andrew Thomas is a very good player, and they lost a guard to injury early in the game. So they were down to backups, and they made that Seattle defensive front, who, by the way, they came into last night 30th in the NFL.
Yeah, they're
in sacks.
not exactly a great.
I like their pass rush group, but it hasn't been like real productive. And then they had 11 sacks. To be fair, only 10 of those were on Daniel Jones. The other was on a wide receiver pass, but still a sack. So
do you think it was more so that specific thing just about depth and going up against backup?
I think it's O-line depth and backup offensive linemen maybe not being good enough anymore for the kind of athlete that we see at defensive end and edge rusher right now. I think we're seeing a kind of athlete at that position, and it's not brand new, but in recent years, that those guys would not have been playing edge rusher in past years.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, the injuries make a difference, and having backups in there makes a difference too, but like, the Raiders line's not good. So the Giants line's not good.
So do you think it's just overall O-line play is just not like behind D-line play?
No, I think the Giants and the Raiders just have bad offensive lines.
So you think it's just singular situation?
Yeah, I think this is a history and primetime bias specifically.
No, I'm just talking, because Khalil Mack had 6 sacks, all in a game. So it's
right, but against a bad team. Like, I don't think that's an overall point. I just name a Raiders offensive lineman who's not Colton Miller.
Robert Gallery,
circa 2023. Like,
I'm not trying to be like combative here. I'm just saying,
no, I know you're not being combative.
But this seems like,
is this different than any other year though? Derek Thomas had 7. 5 other players have 6 sacks in a game in all time, including, by the way, Derek Thomas also had a 6-sack game.
Yeah. So I just look at it and wonder, because we always talk about, wow, this O-line is not, great. This O-line is not great. It just makes me kind of go, okay. Like the O-lines that the Chiefs have faced, right? Okay. Lions, good, right? Pretty good O-line, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good line.
Then you look at the rest of the O-line that the Chiefs have faced. Like the Jets wasn't very good. We say they're not any good. We said that the other day.
No, they're just bad.
The Bears stink. We say Jacksonville stinks.
Jacksonville's is okay.
And we say the Vikings O-line stinks. So I don't know. I'm just wondering if it's just an O-line is just. I think it's because colleges don't run pro style offenses and the O-linemen are just not prepared. Unless you're the really, really, really good ones.
I think that is part of the problem. And NFL people have talked about that. But also, the Vikings offensive line has been bad for years. The Raiders offensive line has been bad for years. The Bears have had line problems since Cutler was good. Like in what would that have been? Like 2014, 2015, when he was actually putting up numbers, their line stunk. They just had a bunch of jump ball receivers to go get. Cutler would run back 7 yards and throw off his back foot, sometimes get picked. Sometimes Brandon Marshall would out-jump someone for it. Like, they've had bad lines forever. The Jets have had bad. I think it's I think some teams are just good at it and some teams are just bad at it. And some coaches are like that. Mike Munchak, when he was in Pittsburgh, offensive lines, top 3 offensive line every year. He left. They never really replaced him with anyone meaningful. They've been bad ever since. The Packers have had good offensive lines literally my entire life. Like they focus on it. Some teams I think are just bad at it.
Quarterbacks, Chicago Bears.
I'm seriously though, some teams
I'm with you.
are just better at those things than others.
Yeah, and I think you go back, especially with some of the worst performances we've seen. A lot of it is offensive line depth and those guys just not being equipped, because it's not as though we're seeing. I went and looked it up because I was curious about this. Of the top 20 team seasons in terms of total sacks in a full season, top 20 seasons. You know how many of those have occurred since 2000?
6.
No, lower.
Ooh.
0.
3.
3.
You have the 2022 Eagles with 70 sacks last year in 17 games. You had 2000 Saints had 66 sacks. The 2006 Chargers had 61 sacks. 2013 Panthers and 2006 Ravens are the only other teams to have 60 plus sacks in a season. Of like that's your top 25 of all time. All of the other ones, I mean, the record is still the 84 Bears, 72 sacks, 89 Vikings, 71 sacks, 87 Bears, 70 sacks in 15 games. So it's not as though we're seeing more sacks. I think the offensive line play, though, you got more teams in the league now, so the talent's more spread out than it was in the 1980s. And you have, I think, a rash of injuries this year to some prominent offensive linemen. And I do think that just creates a problem, and it gets magnified when we see it on national TV like we did last night.
Coming up, we're going to hear from J.J. Picollo. What did he have to say for the season-ending press conference? We'll get to that next. Season press conference wrapped up. It was this morning. J.J. Picollo spoke to the media. And Don't really care about what Matt Quatraro has to say. No hating to you, Matt. But there's really, you can only do so much with the guys you have. This is about dudes. You gotta go get dudes, okay? You can't have bad dudes. And when I mean like not bad people, I mean like bad players.
I am fully in favor of a unified theory of dudes across all sports.
Yes.
The name of the game,
Bobby
no matter
Witt Jr.
no matter the game, is dudes.
Bobby Witt Jr., dude, right?
Yeah.
Jordan Lyles, not a dude, okay? That guy's not even a Jag, okay? For those of you wondering, Jag is just a guy. Anywho, I actually like what Picollo had to say. I really did. So he breaks it down a lot, like this year, what they're looking for, does not give a payroll number. And I don't care about the payroll number. Just go out and get dudes. Here is listen to what J.J. Picollo, this is a really good stuff from J.J. For about 9 minutes here. This is what he had to say.
Is going into the year, we had 3 objectives, and I repeated this over and over. We need to figure out what kind of shortstop Bobby's going to be. We're very, very pleased with Bobby Witt Jr. as our shortstop and expect him to play shortstop moving forward. Kyle Isbell, can he play center field? The answer is yes, he can play center field. Just thinking about past center fielders we had, he's a different body type, so that's where our question was. But Izzy played center field really well. Now, Izzy needs to become a more complete player. He knows that, we know that, and he's perfectly capable. But from a defensive standpoint, we're very happy with him in center. And then pitching, this is the one that I don't think we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish from an evaluation standpoint, mainly because a handful of the guys we were referring to were injured, so we didn't get a chance to complete that evaluation. But what I will say is it's not going to stop us from building on what this team, what the 26-man roster needs to look like next year. We're going to push forward. We're not going to wait any longer. We've got to get better. We got to get deeper with our starting pitching, better with our starting pitching. It's unfortunate that we had the injuries, but there will be healthy competition in that starting rotation, and there may be some other faces in the organization by that point in time. So I think that's all I've got. So.
Just to confirm that this is all in the same role.
Yeah.
And then I just dubbed this year evaluation year. Not to put a slogan on 2024, but what's next? What do you hope to see next year?
Well, we gotta see steady improvement. I don't think Q or I want to put any type of expectations on wins and losses, but there's got to be steady improvement. And I will say I don't believe we're truly a 106 loss team. When you walk into that clubhouse and you feel the energy that was in the clubhouse, I think we came up short of what we probably should have won over the course of the year. But our record is what it is. We can't run away from that. We just want to see improvement, be more competitive in the wins and loss column. And then, the processes, I think, as I referred to, are good. I think they're moving us in the right direction, where I expect the results will be better next year.
And then what's the offseason plan? You mentioned new faces on the.
Yeah. Well, you have starting pitching, you have relief pitching. I mean, there's no question our bullpen has to be addressed. We have to build out a bullpen. We have some guys that are capable that need to be more consistent. He needs to be able to rely on 4 to 5 guys on a nightly basis that can hold a lead. We didn't have that this year, so we have to get more talented and more consistent in that area. Starting rotation has to get deeper. We essentially have 3 guys that we believe are in the rotation right now. The rest of them are competing and may come from the outside. And then also production probably from the outfield, more than likely. We do have some versatility that may allow us to think differently, but just on the surface, we got to get more production out of our corner outfield spots.
JJ, you've had all the evaluation time and all the data points. From the outside looking in anyway, it would seem there's still some things you have to figure out about what it meant, what certain guys' seasons meant, maybe a handful of position players. Can you explain a little bit where you go from here on evaluating guys that maybe didn't have the breakthrough season, but you maybe still feel hopeful about?
Yeah, I guess the best way to answer that is we're not going to settle. we don't like talking about this in these terms, but when guys have options, we have opportunity to find players that can beat them out for positions. So if that's the case, that's the case. I think we have a core of position players that will play well defensively for us and can put together runs. I mean, our runs per game in the second half was much better than the first half. I think we'll be able to create runs. We're not going to rely on the home run. We've got to execute situationally better than we did. There's ways, guys, that can help our team without hitting the 3-run homer all the time, and they have to recognize that. So we have to be a complete baseball team. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but
you are. Just a sort of another point of clarification. Do you feel like you know enough now, or you're about to enter into a sort of evaluation of what you do from here with X number of position players as well as obviously all the pitching?
Yeah, to get more specific, I think our infield's fairly set. I mean, we expect Vinny Pasquantino to be back next year. Our infield's pretty set. I think, again, the outfield is where the competition's going to be. If we can get a deeper, lineup to be deeper, take some pressure off of some other people, it's got to be a complete team. But I think from where we're going to be hunting this offseason, it's going to be bats more so in the outfield than the infield.
Just the last part of that is, so with the way you address that and the pitching, it sounds like you feel like you'll be, I don't know if aggressive's the right word, but certainly looking to bring more people in.
That's a lot. What I say, starting pitching, outfield, and bullpen, that's a lot. But that's the goal. That's the objective. That's where we want to go. And make no mistake. I mean, our infield defense was very good, much improved. Pitching is the name of the game. I mean, let's face it. If you give up 2 to 3 to 4 runs a game, you're going to compete more often than if you're giving up 6 or 7. So, I mean, that's as old as the game is long. So we have to spend more of our time, resources, and efforts in looking at how we can acquire pitching to take a lot of pressure off of the offense and just play good defense. And now you're in close games all the time.
Do you have any indication of what payroll might be for next year?
No.
We talked about being transactional last year. I'm wondering, I recognize it's October 3rd. I'm not going to tell the guys are available. Have some positional log jams certainly on the roster. Do you anticipate potentially trading from the roster to try and improve?
There's a chance we can do that. One of the things that an objective that we should have as a front office is to take pressure off of scouting, player development, international operations. And one of the ways to do that is to be more aggressive and trade, whether it be prospects or off of your major league roster, because there's very few teams in the history of the game, if any, that have won a division with 20 homegrown guys, and when I look out night after night, we're playing 7 to 8 guys every night that are homegrown, which is great. But at the same time, you got to put a team together, and that puts a lot of undue pressure in other areas. And we can help as a front office in being creative with different ideas, not being afraid to make a trade, not sitting here saying we definitely are, but we have to be open to that.
I assume when any team goes in the offseason, they have to ask themselves, where are they as far as maybe how close they are to being competitive, how close they are to winning a championship. So, when you ask yourself that question, how close do you think you are to being a team that can compete?
Yeah. This year was an eye-opener. I think what we showed is we weren't ready to compete for our division this year. And I don't think the expectation was that. But the hopes were we were, maybe 24. Right now I can't sit here and say I think 24 is the year that we're going to, definitely win the division. But we expect to get better. And I don't think it's going to take a whole lot. And again, if you look at our division, I think there's a lot of parity in the division. We've got to get to a point where we're competitive night in, night out. And if we, are in that 80 to 85 win range, you're going to be in some sort of race. And that's what we want for our fans. That's what we want for our city. We want them to have a reason to come to the ballpark in September. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you are 10 games up, but we want to give our fans a reason to come to the ballpark. So it's hard to put a timetable on it to say, we expect to win X number of games. I think a lot of it's going to depend on what we do with the roster through the offseason. We'll have a better idea of how well we can compete once we, address some of those things.
So that is what J.J. Picollo said. And I'm going to be honest with you. That's about as honest as I've heard. Dayton Moore talked for 30,000 minutes and gave you nothing. Kind of the Andy Reid approach. I thought this was a lot of good info. He said basically this. Our infield is set. He said that. Our infield is set. It is going to be Garcia, Bobby Wood Jr., Massey, and Vinny Pasquantino. He even mentioned we got Vinny coming back. We need to do three things. We got to develop more than just we got three starting pitchers. I want to know who the third is.
Jordan Lyles.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that is
no,
it.
You later on in the discussion, we didn't play the whole thing because the whole press conference today was 40 minutes.
This is like the
but
most
no, later
important
on in
part
the
of
press conference, he said, Jordan Lyles.
Okay. So that's not great, to be honest with you. So to me, they've got two guys and then a body. All right. And then outfield and then bullpen. That is what he said they've got to go out and get. Starters, outfield, and bullpen. I am interested, and I think Velasquez did enough to put him out there for the first 50 games next year and see what he did. I mean, his power was impressive. I hope it can carry over, and he's not Ryan O'Hearn when he was hitting like Willie McCovey that one year, and then ever since then for the Royals, he was terrible. I'm hoping that's not the case. It might be, but it might not be. And then if you really think about what he said, you're not going to have 20 homegrown. I think he's trading somebody on the major league roster. You don't bring that up. No, he says there's a chance, but then he goes on to say, you don't have 20 homegrown guys on your roster. When the Royals were winning in 2015, look who was homegrown and who wasn't. More so than not, it was not homegrown. We think homegrown because of
the core was homegrown. You had developed a core.
Three guys was homegrown. That was it.
Oh, yeah.
Three guys. I'm talking lineup.
You get half credit for Kane and
but that's
Escobar.
That's a trade, man.
Yeah,
that is not homegrown.
That's true.
Like your homegrown guys were, your Mooses, your Hosmers,
Perez,
Salvador Perez,
Ventura, Duffy,
the Greg
the bullpen, Holland and Herrera. Yeah,
and so like that's why look at their rotation. Volquez, free agent. Shields, free. Shields wasn't there at that point in time. Trade.
Yeah, he was a trade.
Volquez.
Guthrie was a trade.
Guthrie, Chris Young.
Yeah.
So I think you're looking at. I think they're going to be making some trades. I think there's some guys on this team right now, and I am including Salvador Perez. We had talked about that maybe in August. What's going to happen with Salvador Perez? I think this is setting the stage for that because he brought up a lot, hey, we because the majority of this roster is homegrown right now. Okay. The only one that does this is the Braves, and even the Braves are not as fully homegrown as what people realize. So I think someone's getting traded, but we now know Isbell's their center fielder unless they can go out and get somebody, that they said, hey, we got to find out if Isbell can do it. By the way, that was one of the three things that you needed to figure out this year was, can Kyle Isbell play center?
He can play center.
Yes.
Can he play is he good enough at the plate?
And that's what he mentioned. Yeah. So unless there's somebody else out there, if I'm Velasquez or if I'm MJ Melendez or if I'm Drew Waters, I don't know if I'm going to be playing, in the outfield next year because he flat out said that. Starting pitching, bullpen, and he doesn't know what the payroll is going to be.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. The Kansas City Royals, nor John Sherman, nor J.J. Picollo get the benefit of the doubt. So I don't
just
think
going by
I get
what
it.
he said.
I get it, and it was great. And everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
But no,
prove it.
No.
That's all I'm saying.
But I want this because now I know.
I don't want to win a press conference though. I don't.
But it gives me at least now I know what their expectation is.
But do you?
They wouldn't put a number on it.
The single most important question was answered with one word and ignored. The single most important question was about payroll, and it was completely ignored.
Well, I'll know the end of the year payroll when they start the year. That's why I don't care about that.
My point is, though, that if you don't, like, if he's willing to say, we need this, and we need to figure out this, and we can make trades, and we got to have non-homegrown guys and all of that, but he's not even going to tell him, like, that's awesome. Are you going to pay him? Are you going to pay to get those guys?
We're going to find out.
I know, but that's my point. Like, if you're not willing to acknowledge that, then it doesn't mean anything to me. I don't think this team gets the benefit of the doubt.
I'm going to wait and see what they do. If they go out and their offseason is signed Joe Schmo, and they don't spend any money, then I know what they're doing. So
I know we're saying the same thing, though. I just view it differently. You can give me the greatest plan I've ever heard. You go ahead, but until you prove that you can do it, I'm not going to believe you can do it.
Well, I'll wait until they make the answer. Like that's all I'm saying is I like it because they've at least told me what they're going to do. Will they do it? We'll find out. What is it?
No, we're saying the same thing. We're just getting their different ways.
31st is what we're going to do. Then I will know whether or not to care at all about this upcoming year.
I'm just saying I can't get excited because of this press conference. Because I don't think this franchise has earned that from, and I'm not a fan, but I don't think this franchise has done enough in recent years to deserve that sort of benefit.
I think it's fair to say it's not an exciting press conference, especially when they say we're not putting an expectation on a win total for next year. But I do think there's a clear-eyed vision of where this offseason needs to go. Now, are they going to get the funds to do it right? That is what remains to be seen. That is what it is fair to have some doubts about. But at least it feels like they have a roadmap here.
Lots to get to. We will get to some Chiefs talk coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. Hour number 2, 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget, you can win $2,000 a day with the 580 WWW keyword and ghost your bills. That's right, the word BOO. BOO. Listen every hour between 8 and 5 for the keyword to enter at 580WWW.com, and you can win. The keyword is only good for the hour. So from now until 4 o'clock, you can go to our website, 580WWW.com, click on it, and then type in the word BOO, as in BOO. And you have a chance to win.
Boo!
You have a chance to win. You have a chance to win. Some good discussion on the text line when it comes to the Royals. From our texter, the fact that it didn't even address payroll and then straight up said 24 isn't the year quickly stole my optimism away from me. Feel that?
Snatched it.
Jake, I was buying what you're selling and starting to get excited, but I don't want to win the press conference comment and agree this franchise, even under new ownership, has continued to show us otherwise. I do agree that JJ's honesty regarding this situation was refreshing. I don't care about winning the press conference. The thing that I liked was it was more of a actual plan. It was, we're going to go get starting arms, we're going to go get bullpen arms, and we're going to go find some outfielders. How we do it, I don't know. It might be trades, it might be free agency, but at least that's what they said they're going to do.
And I appreciate them not putting a number. I don't put a number on wins for next year. Don't tell me you think this can be an 80-win team, and then you don't go out and add 25 wins to this roster. Because I don't know that you can add 25 wins. You're going to need a lot of internal improvement, and you're going to need to make a lot of additions. But I'm okay with not setting an expectation there. You still haven't had that bridge year, like we talked about yesterday, that year that separates you from the dregs and contention, the year where you learn to win, the year where you put some things together. If next year they only win 72 to 75 games, that would still be that's almost 20 more wins.
Yeah.
It would be such a step in the right direction that it would be something to be positive about. But yeah, don't set an expectation, because you don't want to sit in a chair in October and say, we're going to be an 85-win team, and then sit in that same chair after you win 68 games next year and try to explain, well, this is why we didn't win 85 games.
And I
Be
like,
a very Dayton Moore move.
I like the fact that if they go out and get a center fielder, okay, this is the guy that they got. If they go get 2 bullpen arms, if they trade for starting pitching, they at least addressed what they consider an issue. They addressed it. Now let's see if they did the correct thing in evaluating whether this was a good move. That is what I like about this, to see if they do it. If they don't address it, well, then going into the year, I will have zero expectation. But I have said this from when the Royals were good. You know, in 2014, we expected them to be competitive, because in 2013, they won 83 games. 2014, we expected them to be competitive. And then apparently a talk in the locker room with Raul Ibanez up in Chicago ignited an onslaught of wins the rest of the year. And all I wanted them was to make the playoffs, win the wild card game, because I don't consider that making the playoffs. You got to be in the playoffs at that point in time when it was that. That's just my personal feeling. One game is not the playoffs. You got to have a series. That was just me, to each their own. Then in 2015, it was, no, you got to make the playoffs again and be there, because that's what you had. That was the expectation. All I really want is for this team to be in it August 1st. Just be in it. Be 5 games back from the wild card August 1st. Be 6 games back of the wild card August 1st. That's all I want. August 1st, is your season already over? That's it. That's all I want. That is what I want for the Royals next year. I don't no 85. What? Just be in it. Because the Royals were not in it May 1st.
Yeah, they were pretty donezo right out of the gate.
I think we called the season May 10th, I believe. I think I said if they don't,
and we were nice.
And I think I said they didn't even make it to Memorial Day. They didn't. And that's why just be in it. Just be relative. Like be
Relevant?
there. Or relevant, yeah. Like be there. That's all I want.
Be relative.
Be just
Make a lot of comparisons. Have an uncle
or an aunt.
or an aunt.
Or an aunt, depending on how you pronounce it.
I'm an aunt guy.
Yep. I wanted to be
I
better.
thought he was
I
gonna
think.
say, yeah, I'm an aunt guy as well. Team aunt or team aunt. One of my cousins, or is it cousin is an uncle, who says, no, you love your aunt, you step on ants. That's what he said.
My cousin uncle has similar logic.
Yeah. Let's get to the Chiefs and their wide receiver position. Because that's what we were going to talk about this, but good discussion when it comes to the Royals. Who should get the most snaps? Who should get the most snaps? Because they got 7 guys.
Oh, the wide receivers?
Yeah. Who should play?
Like, who should be wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3?
No, I just want to know who should get the majority of the snaps. I don't care what wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 are. I just want to know. Don't put names on them. I just want dudes. Who are the dudes who should get the reps?
MVS, Justin Watson, Rashee Rice.
MVS, Justin Watson.
Is it I keep getting it wrong, and I apologize. Rashee Rice.
Rashee Rice, yeah.
All right, so hold on.
Those-
I need to visualize this.
Those are the guys. Because I think Watson is the most trusted. I think MVS is the most. I want to be careful. Because if I say he's the most complete, that means that I'm suggesting that he's the best, and I'm not. But I think he has the broadest skill set. Let me say that. He can go deep and get you a deep ball. He can make a sideline catch. He's the best blocker. Like, I think he has the most well-rounded skill set. I think that's the way to say it without suggesting that he's some kind of superstar relative to the rest of the group.
Yeah.
So Watson, because he's reliable. MVS, because he's well-rounded. And Rashee Rice, because I think he has been the best to this point.
When you say 7, are you including Richie James or Montreal Washington?
Well, yeah, James can't play because he's on IR right now. So yeah, like 6 then.
Okay.
Because Montreal Washington is there to
He's return kicks,
catch,
which is fine.
Wait, I'm not scared to death back there now when the ball is punted. Okay,
Done a decent job.
I'm okay with that.
Dude, this group stinks. I wrote these out because I do better visualizing it.
Mm-hmm.
This group stinks. This is probably a bottom 5 wide receiver room in the NFL. It might be bottom 3. And like I like Rashee Rice. I think he's going to be a very good NFL player. I think he could be a wide receiver 1. But like if he and Kadarius Toney are your 1-2 punch, this is one of the worst rooms in the league.
I didn't ask you.
I know that's how you asked.
I think
I'm
we're overcorrecting by saying that. I think we were a little high on them, and now we're overcorrecting. It's not a great room. It's full of a lot of guys who have not proven that they are reliable targets, but there are skill sets here. There's athletic ability here. And I think that there are better days ahead for this group. I just don't think they've found the rhythm yet. I don't think it felt after the Chicago game that they were starting to read from the same hymnal. And maybe they're still trying to find the right page.
That's the reason why I bring up who should play, because I look at this as kind of compare this to local teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, Bill Self always played the wrong guys in November because he wanted to win and he valued winning so much in November. But if he played the right guys who were going to help him out in February and March, and they got more reps but took a few lumps early on, might have benefited KU a little bit better in the latter, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
they always went with guys who he could trust instead of, hey, you know what? They're going to make mistakes, but then they're going to be better for it. And that's why I am with you. Rice needs to play more. And I know he's going to drop passes. I know he's going to. He's not going to play more, by the way. I hope you guys understand that. He won't. But he's got the highest ceiling out of anyone in this group. And if that means dropping a couple passes, and he did, although, you know, some people said he dropped 2. One of them was like a fastball right at him before he turned his head and it kind of got on him. I'm not going to consider that one a drop. The previous pass that he dropped, yes, obviously. But I think Rice, no question, needs to play more. He needs to play more because, one, he's your best yards after the catch guy right now who's actually on the field. And I think he can do a lot of different things. So I think he needs to play more. MVS is going to play because he's the veteran of the group. And this goes back to your point. If MVS is the most reliable guy you've got on your team, it's not great. It's not. Like, you got to call a spade a spade. So MVS and Rice, to me, are the two guys that have to see the field the most because Rice can do more, and his physicalness, yards after the catch, brings more to the table than what any other guy there is who consistently can play. Like, I hate to say this, but right now Sky Moore can't. His reps need to drop.
It's not happening for him
No,
yet.
it's not.
And it's
It's
so
not.
strange because it felt like it was going to.
It's not. It is not, and it's not even remotely close. The dude runs like 900 routes a game and has caught 2 passes.
Rashee Rice is having the season and making the plays that I thought Sky Moore was going to be making.
And I know 4 games is we talked about it. 4 games might be a little too quick, right? Not in this situation. I think Sky Moore needs to drop his the amount of snaps he's getting. Rice needs to add more. Tony right now, honestly, is just McCole Hardman.
So
like that's the issue right now. It's not Rice. It's not MVS. It's the biggest issue is they thought Tony would be the guy. Right now, Tony is not the guy. And that is the number one issue.
And I think some of that can be attributed to he didn't get any camp. He got hurt on the first special teams rep of camp. And he's, again, dealing with an injury. And that, makes him less reliable, certainly. But I also think that is a fair reason why we haven't seen him at full capacity yet. Because I think that when he is healthy, he can do things that nobody else on this team can and can be useful. I mean, that was a big catch he made Sunday night, that wheel route out of the backfield down the sideline. Like, I think there's more of that ahead for Kadarius Toney. If I had to pick one wide receiver who hasn't produced, most of them really haven't produced much the first 4 weeks. But if I had to pick a guy who I feel like that's going to be a guy who sees his role expand and can do some things that are helpful, it's Kadarius Toney. But it might only be helpful to the extent that McCole Hardman was helpful.
So if you're asking just for the number of play, like the top 3, essentially.
Yeah.
So you're running 11 personnel. Who are the top 3 you want to go with? The group I have, I've ranked them. I have put together my own wide receiver depth chart.
Perfect. Yeah.
Number 1 is Rashee Rice.
Okay.
I want him to be wide receiver 1.
Yeah, he needs to play at 36% of the snaps. He needs to be at like 60-some.
Number 2, I have Kadarius Toney, because while I am concerned about the fact that he has not taken off yet, and the injuries will always be a concern, but I am in agreement with Dan that I think there is more there. And I think if you can get him in a rhythm, he is going to be explosive for your team. I swear to God, I'm not. Well, okay. I'm going to make a slight change here to my list because I don't want to be too hot takey here. Number 3 is Justin Watson.
Okay.
Who has more snaps, Justin Watson or MVS?
Watson.
No,
more,
MVS by like 30 snaps, I think, this year.
Okay.
In fact, it might even be more than that. MVS has played 175 offensive snaps. Justin Watson has played 124, 51 more snaps.
Yeah.
Who has more targets?
Watson, I bet.
Watson has more targets. Who has a higher success rate when targeted?
Watson.
Justin Watson.
He is trusted. Mahomes
yeah.
trusts him to make a play one-on-one in a way that I don't know that he trusts any other receiver on this team to make a play one-on-one.
And that
other than Kelsey.
I'm putting him in. You guys know I'm not an MVS fan.
Correct.
And I know I'm alone in that, and that's all right. But right now, if you're looking for the best combination of explosive playability and trustworthiness with your quarterback, I think Watson's got to be in that circle. He would be that third one in the group. I think that would give you the best combination right now of trustworthiness and big playability. And
Well,
also multiplicity when you
I
look
would
at
say
Rice, because I think he can be a short, intermediate, or deep guy.
The biggest problem with this is right now, your trustworthiness in Tony is non-existent because one, he hasn't proven to stay on the field and catching the football. Same thing for Rice. His trustworthiness is not there because he's proven he's going to drop a pass every single game. Like Watson is the most trustworthy guy, but he doesn't quite have the same ceiling as Rice and Kadarius Toney. You know, that's the, like, I'm to the point now where I want Justin Ross to play more than Sky Moore.
I am with you.
For real.
And
like I am.
I'm with you.
It's almost like you've had 20 some games and I'm not seeing a single thing from Sky Moore.
My question, and this is probably not the always best way to look at all situations where you get, you know, data like this or experiences like this, but it's generally how I process them. What could be worse? Seriously, Sky Moore is giving you nothing. And that sucks because I was,
Yeah,
you
we
heard
were
me
all
all
aboard Sky Moore.
all in on Sky Moore. He has given you nothing.
And he's playing 62% of the snaps.
Even last year, in a role that he was not built for, being the jet motion guy, jet motion is valuable. That's a useful thing to put into your offensive play calling. He's not even giving you that.
Well,
right now.
and Tony can do that.
Yeah, he's giving you nothing.
Well,
So
granted, you gotta play.
Yeah.
You gotta,
Well, a lot of times that jet motion guy becomes a blocker. Like it's
Yeah.
not about the speed threat. Like if you watched the Seahawks last night, you know where they were using as their motion guy for a lot of their plays? Jake Bobo, who ran a 4.8 at the combine.
Dustin dudes.
Honestly, you want to start getting creative with the play calling? You know who that should be? Should probably be number 11. That should probably be MVS. Because of all these guys, the best blocker of your wide receivers by a mile is MVS. He's a great blocking receiver.
So you underline my point. Like the motion man doesn't have to be the speed threat or the jet sweep threat. Sometimes that's just him getting to point A from point A to point B faster, so you can get downhill and lay a block. Could be a lead blocker for somebody on a sweep.
And for MVS's sake, his best route is the 9. He is best in a straight line speed. And if you're going across the formation, you're turning at a 90-degree angle on the snap, you're getting downhill quickly. So, again, Andy Reid's smarter than me. I'm just a moron. But this is how I would put it together. And with the Justin Ross thing, like, okay, so you put Justin Ross in for Sky Moore's share of snaps next week.
What's the worst going to happen?
Yeah, and he catches
Nothing.
one ball for 8 yards.
There you go.
That's no different than what Sky Moore's doing.
Right.
I'm with you. That's why I wonder who should get the snaps. And the one thing that we all agree on is, and I know you're going to deal with the drops, but Rice has got to play more. He has got to play more. And Tony right now is not a wide receiver. He is he's better, but not on the field. McCole Hardman. That's what he is right now. Coming up next, we got Random Question Tuesday, and then we're going to talk with Jordan Foote on all things Chiefs. Question Tuesday. All right. I quoted a movie yesterday and to my wife. And then it got me thinking. I quote a lot of movies. What's the most quotable movie?
For me, it's probably my favorite movie. It's Clerks.
Okay.
I quote that all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I
You going Clerks?
no, I'm not going Clerks. Sometimes it can be like dependent on the context. Like if you're golfing, it's Caddyshack.
Okay.
But I don't know. Anchorman's pretty quotable.
Anchorman's up there.
Anchorman's very quotable.
The one that Tommy Boy. I use that a lot. Love Tommy Boy. It's one of my favorite movies.
I use Dodgeball a lot.
Okay.
A lot from that one. Airplane, a lot. I don't know. Clerks having the line, I'm not even supposed to be here today, and bunch of savages in this town are things I say like almost every single day.
I quote The Big Lebowski a lot. That's my favorite movie ever. And so I quote
I
that
did
one
not
a
know
lot.
that.
Yeah, that's my favorite movie.
The Dude Abides.
Is Tommy Boy your number one?
Sometimes there's a man.
I don't know,
Sometimes there's a man.
Yeah. Let's go bowling. There's a lot of them. Like a lot of them.
Shout out Clayton on the YouTube comments who chimes in also with Big Lebowski. Vance says Forrest Gump,
Forrest Gump's a good one.
Airplane, Dirty
Yeah, I
Harry.
quote Forrest Gump a lot. Fast Times at Richmond High.
I've still never seen Forrest Gump.
Really?
Yeah, never.
It is fallen out of favor in the film community in recent years
Why is that?
because it came out the same year as Shawshank Redemption and won Best Picture, not Shawshank. And also the fact that I think people have started to like assign more political commentary to it than was originally intended.
So people screwed it up.
Yeah, text from the 785 Wedding Crashers.
That's a good one.
That's a
is
good one.
Rule number 76. Play like a champion.
Yeah.
Step Brothers was on TV the other night. That was
Step Brothers is a
that's a
good
good
one.
one.
Wedding Crash is a good one.
it's the bleeping Catalina wine mixer.
Mhm. What is this? A prison? I say that to my wife all the time. She's like, "Can you do this? What is this? A prison?"
House is a prison.
So mine is in a somewhat similar vein, or
Okay.
at least could be in a similar vein.
That was one that I wrote down yesterday, by the way, when we did show prep live on there.
What is one moment, like in terms of humor, something you laughed at that you wish you could go back and laugh at for the first time again? Like a movie or a show or a stand-up special or something where you wish you could experience it for the first time again.
I wish I could rewatch seasons 1 through 11 of The Simpsons for the first time again.
That's a good one.
Man, if I could rewatch the very beginning and when I was young and watch Dumb and Dumber, gosh, I thought that was so funny.
I
My
will
wife
say,
hates that movie, by the way.
for one specific moment, I don't know that I've ever been in a movie theater that laughed harder at anything. Talladega Nights, another great answer
Yep.
to
Yeah.
your question. When they cut out of the climactic crash scene to run an honest to God Applebee's commercial in the middle of the movie, I swear to you, I thought the theater was going to fall down. I laughed so hard I got lightheaded. That was the loudest I have ever heard a movie theater laugh at anything.
I
a good
love
one.
that movie.
Second
That's a good
place
one.
would be every part of the first Borat.
Yeah,
So-
I've never seen the first Borat.
It's oh man, it's
Never
funny.
seen that one.
It is so funny.
Never seen that one.
Clayton has an entry on the YouTube comments. He says Eddie Murphy's Raw. Yeah, that's probably a good one. I've seen that. My answer, the reason that this came up is I was listening to the soundtrack to the most recent season of The Righteous Gemstones on my way home from work the other day, and the theme song to Baby Billy's Bible Bonkers came on.
Bible Bonkers.
It's only 40 seconds long. I almost had to pull over. I was laughing so hard. And when Abby and I watched it, when that episode came out, I didn't think I was going to make it through the rest of the episode. I was laughing as hard as I possibly could. Buzzing in the name of the Lord.
They gonna make Bible Bonkers now.
All right, Dan, what do you got?
Baby Billy, stop with your Bible Bonkers.
What is, okay, inspired by this, what is the best voice work in a cartoon or show, like best accent or voice work that is reliably entertaining or amusing? Because I'll give you Walton Goggins is Baby Billy in Righteous Gemstones, and also Maya Rudolph is the hormone monstress in Big Mouth.
I never got into Big Mouth.
You know, I
Now you
had
know what that is.
I had to stop watching it about three seasons in. I kind of had my fill
It
of
was
the show. It was a cartoon about kids going through puberty done by adults.
I mean, every other word, every third word was a curse.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I gave it 3 seasons, and that was all I was willing to give it. But Maya Rudolph is a hormone monstrous was doing just titanic work.
It's not an answer, but I was blown away that I found this out. So I loved the Ninja Turtles growing up and the cartoon.
Mhm.
Did you know that Shredder, the voice of Shredder, was James Avery, the dad, Uncle Phil on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Did not know that.
That
Did not know
blew
that.
me away because I loved both of those shows.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Because James Avery younger, and then James Avery is Uncle Phil. Anyways, that blew my mind. And then I listened, I was like, oh my gosh, Shredder is Uncle Phil.
Man, this is a tough one.
Yeah, just favorite voice acting, I guess.
Nothing really jumps out though.
Oh man. I'm trying to think. That's a really tough question. I don't know what my answer would be. I'm trying to think of
I got you. Mufasa, James Earl Jones. Man, he was so good.
You love The Lion King.
You are a big
I'm
Lion
watching
King
it
guy.
every. Oh, guys, I got a real bad problem that's gonna potentially happen for Halloween.
Are you gonna dress up like characters from The Lion King?
Yeah, and guess what? My son wants me to be.
Oh, are you gonna die?
No, worse.
You're Mufasa?
No, worse.
You're Scar.
I'm Scar. And then I was like, I don't want to be Scar. And then my son goes, I'll be Scar. No, you're not. No, you are not gonna be Scar. Scar's the worst Disney character.
Yeah, pretty bad guy.
The
Scar.
worst Disney
The
character?
worst Disney character.
That's a whole other random question.
Worst Disney character. Not even a question.
I don't know, man. The bully in Toy Story, pretty nasty guy.
Sid?
Sid. Yeah, not a fan of Sid.
Yeah, well, we can do that. Coming up, we're going to talk with Jordan Foote on all things Chiefs. Welcome back here to 580 Sports Talk as we are breaking down all things Chiefs football. Chiefs, of course, off today. We'll get to more. We'll hear from Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid coming up tomorrow, but we got lots to get to. Right now, we're going to break things down on the Chiefs side of things with Jordan Foote, covers the Kansas City Chiefs. You can follow him on Twitter at Footnoted. Jordan, how are things going, man?
I'm good. We have regular season football to talk about. We're all rolling on that front. College football's going, man. It is one of the very best times of the year. So excited to chat with you guys.
Are you already over the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce discussion?
Yes. As someone who enjoys watching both of them be good at their craft, and as someone who's done probably 5 or 6 stories on it already, I have borderline fully opted out of that discourse. So happy for them. But once Kelce went on new heights and kind of said, hey, let's let our personal life be our personal life, I couldn't agree more with him.
Well, then let's get to what actually happened on the field. Bigger concern for you right now that the Chiefs offense just hasn't got things going, or is it more specifically the wide receivers haven't got things going?
Yeah, I hate to be that guy. I think it is a little bit of both. Like, Patrick Mahomes hasn't played absolutely fantastic football this year, and I think Sunday's game was a big reason why. But also his wide receivers are not getting open like they used to. You look at PFF, the Chiefs have the 17th, 38th, 65th, 93rd, and 111th wide receivers in yards per route run. They just are not able to, they're not getting consistent separation. They are seeing a decent amount of zone coverage, but you're also seeing guys like Sky Moore, who now have played roughly 20 games as a Kansas City Chief, not flattening out his route when he's supposed to, not throttling down and finding soft spots in zone coverage. It is a wide receiver wide problem where MVS is still the MVS of old. Justin Watson is still Justin Watson. Kadarius Toney can't get on the field. Sky Moore is not making that leap, and the Chiefs are kind of relying on rookie Rashee Rice to be their number one receiver, and he kind of has been the best so far. The data backs it up, and I'd argue the eye test does as well, but you don't have Juju Smith-Schuster there anymore. Toney's kind of filling that Hardman role. This is a group that, with the offensive tackle play being a little inconsistent, with the run game being a little inconsistent, Mahomes not being Mahomes, Kelce working his way back, I'm not too surprised that they are struggling offensively. And this is still 9th in passing yards per game, 9th in points per game. It's still a good offense, but it is not the Chiefs offense we've grown to know over the past several years.
So when it comes then to the construction of this team, did Veach underestimate Patrick Mahomes elevating the wide receivers? Because instead of putting guys, like the big-time wide receivers, paying them, they put all that money in the O-line saying, hey, if we just give Mahomes time, he'll make it work. Or that's a bit premature right now. We're 4 games in, maybe at week 14, 15, the receivers will get it. And now we've got, receivers who get it and a really good offensive line. When is that line that you can kind of say, he maybe have miscalculated how this was going to work?
Probably one more month. If Sky Moore doesn't really show that much improvement in the next month, and Rashee Rice can only be so good as a rookie, Kadarius Toney being fully immersed back into the offense, like, this is a group with MVS and Watson. They're going to be the same player all year. They don't have that much more time left. And I published an article after that first game of the year saying the Chiefs kind of have to sleep in the bed they've made here. They can only blame themselves for the investment or lack thereof in the wide receiver room. And when you think about the types of receivers they have, you take away Rashee Rice, who is a rookie. Toney gets in space, makes things happen after the catch. Sky Moore, supposed to be this guy that isn't the biggest body, really good at the yards after catch, tough player. The Chiefs don't have a ton of guys that are good at actual wide receiver stuff, being a ball winner, winning against man coverage, being a big bodied guy. They kind of relied on Mahomes to be able to find them and throw them open, and Andy Reid to be able to scheme them open. And that's something that is valuable. Don't get me wrong. And the Chiefs have shown that they can win a Super Bowl with a ragtag group of wide receivers. But at the same time, just because they did it once and completed a crazy comeback and did it by the skin of their teeth, that doesn't necessarily mean they always have to. So I think you look ahead in the proverbial crystal ball, I guess you could say. If they lose in the divisional round, it's not hard to kind of blame and say, hey, looking ahead, it could be because of that wide receiver group.
We're chatting with Jordan Foote, deputy editor of Arrowhead Report, part of the Sports Illustrated Fan Nation community. You can find him on Twitter at FooteNoted, Foote noted. And he joins us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline to talk all things Kansas City Chiefs. Sticking with the offense, Jordan, how would you grade the 2 new tackles for Kansas City so far? We know about the penalty drama with Juwan Taylor. That's something that obviously will have to be fixed going forward. But in terms of the actual non-penalized blocking, how do you think he and Donovan Smith have done so far?
We'll start it off with Juwan Taylor. I think he's been pretty darn good in pass protection and really in run blocking as well. He gave up 4 pressures per PFF on Sunday, and kind of their grading's a little bit wonky every once in a while. You get a pressure that might have been a quarterback created one or charged to someone else. So it was probably his worst pass protection game, and he was still pretty darn decent. I thought he's been objectively good in that regard, in my opinion, and really jumping in. He's been worth the money in that regard. You can't neutralize the penalties completely and just throw them out the window, but you ignore those. You ignore the inconsistency with the officiating. I think he has shown promise there. The other side of the line, Donovan Smith, he's gotten better over the course of the year, and he started off, gave up 7 pressures week 1, didn't look too good at all. He's had some better games since then, and the Chiefs don't give up many sacks. The sack percentage for Mahomes is like less than 2% because he's so good now at moving throughout the pocket and escaping and scrambling when he needs to. Considering the price point they're getting Donovan Smith at, I think he's been really good compared to what they could have had Orlando Brown at, or they draft a rookie and then you're investing a premium pick, something like that. Considering what they're giving him, I think he's been fine. So they do need Taylor to improve in order to be worth the contract. But for a combined, whatever it's going to be, $18 million for this year, whatever the cap hit is for those two, I think they've generally been okay. And the good news is that they should get better over the course of the season.
Flipping across the line of scrimmage to that defensive front, I don't think anyone is surprised that Chris Jones is playing well because he's one of the best defensive linemen at any spot in the NFL. But are you surprised that he was able to hit the ground running and be this good this quickly after going so much time without any real football work?
Yeah, it's insane. And Chris Jones, don't get me wrong, is a fantastic athlete, a fantastic player. But to go with no training camp, no preseason, no week 1, no real acclimation or ramp-up period, the Chiefs kind of just threw him into the fire and said, hey, man, here you go. This is you. And he's handled it and passed with flying colors. He's looked great so far. Hasn't suffered any big-time injuries. I know the groin was limiting him in practice a little bit, but still been really good. Chris Jones has been awesome, and it is very impressive for a player to come in and do that, a 300-pounder, a guy that really does need that ramp-up period, and to do it down in Jacksonville where the weather was so bad, to play half the snaps. It's been fantastic. To compliment George Karlaftis, who's having a better year, Mike Dana, who's in a contract season playing well. This Chiefs defensive line hasn't even got Charles Omenihu back in the fold. They're still a few weeks away from that. It's been pretty good. The pass rush has been fine. Chris Jones is playing well, and Steve Spagnuolo is coaching him up well. So it's definitely impressive, even for a guy like Chris Jones, I think.
You mentioned a couple of guys there who I think have really stood out. And I mean, if you didn't know much about the Chiefs and you saw 51 out there flying around like he has the first 4 weeks of the season, you'd probably think he was a guy who was going to get a surefire big deal with the Chiefs. But I'm assuming he's going to get paid by someone in free agency with how well Dana is playing. But that brings me, Jordan, to my next question. What has surprised you the most about this defensive performance so far this year, outside of Chris Jones being this good this quickly? Is it the fact that Mike Dana has become a legitimate threat as a pass rusher from that end opposite Karlaftis? Is it the fact that Trent McDuffie early in year 2 looks like a surefire superstar at this point? What has really surprised you the most, good or bad, about how this defense is playing?
Just really how collectively it's come together so quickly. Drew Tranquil coming in, being a new guy, the cornerback group not having a massive step back despite relying on a pair of day 3 drafts last year. That was super interesting. The linebacking core with Nick Bolton being out a couple games, so many who not being there up front, that entire thing, you're fielding Derek Nottie, who's not a pass rush threat at all and is coming off probably the worst season of his career last year. Chris Jones not there week 1. Like, they've had plenty of obstacles working against them, playing a good offense week 1, playing a good offense week 2. A lot of stuff has gone against the Chiefs defense this year, yet there hasn't been this learning curve that people have grown to expect. Usually every year, the Steve Spagnuolo defense takes a few weeks to get together. It takes week 9, week 10, then you see an improvement for the playoffs. There hasn't been that. And yes, a lot of it is because guys are in their second year. They're more comfortable. But on the flip side of that, they're still young. They're still incredibly young in the NFL, literal age-wise, experience-wise, all that stuff. He's not peeling back things like he was last year, running a lot of static cover 2, not giving a lot of assignments out. This is a full-fledged Spagnuolo defense. He's doing things that people didn't necessarily expect him to do, really ever, let alone this year with such a young defense, and they're thriving. So just the timeline of it all stuck out to me. I thought this would be more of a week 12, week 13 type defense. They played some decent offenses, and the early results have just been really surprising.
Jordan Foote of Arrowhead Report is our guest here on 580 Sports Talk, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Follow Jordan on Twitter at FootNoted. Jordan, I want to go back to the wide receiver mix. If it were your wide receiver group to manage in terms of snaps, in terms of usage, what things do you think the Chiefs could be doing, should be doing to try and get the most out of the personnel they have? Are there players they need to be using more, players they need to be using less? How do you think that this should be handled in a way that Mahomes and the rest of the offense can get the most out of the passing game?
It's a tough problem to deal with because on one hand, you want to have kind of our cap physicality-wise and potential-wise, but you also want Sky Moore out there because his development's critical. You want Kadarius Toney out there because his development's critical, and you want Rashee Rice out there. I think they are managing Rice very well. If I'm running the group, I'm just giving Rice the full green light and maybe giving him wide out 1 snaps and seeing what he can do. In that capacity, I'm upping Kadarius Toney's workload and giving him as many designed, manufactured touches as possible and just kind of riding that train till the wheels fall off because history has shown that it probably will happen at some point. Then I'm basically weaponizing the young guys. And MVS is important to have out there. Watson's important to have out there. I'm getting Justin Ross out there in some isolated packages on the backside, getting him on the red zone packages, really getting the kids out there because the group they have right now with a mix of youth and veterans just isn't working too well. They can only go up from here, I think, and maybe you get all the young guys out there at the same time, you get some size out there, and you kind of mix and match and see what can happen.
You can't use Patrick Mahomes as your answer to this question, but which Chief do you feel like you can say after 4 weeks they haven't played their best football and there is better football definitively to come from this player that's going to help the team play better?
Travis Kelce and Sky Moore, and I guess probably an extension of that. I can't use Mahomes. I probably shouldn't use Kelce either. It's probably Sky Moore, and I know he hasn't shown a lot, but I do think he's going to be the key to getting this Chiefs offense back on track. And when the Chiefs drafted him, I thought this guy's going to be a number 2 receiver for a long time. He doesn't have the physical traits to be an alpha. He's not going to handle the jump to the NFL very well. It's kind of been the arc that I expect. Now, I did think he'd do a lot more at this point than he has, but the general sense of his development has kind of followed that same curve. So Sky Moore, he has shown in little spurts that he can get separation, and he's a good athlete, and he has good hands, and he can make things happen. The Chiefs need him to be good in order for this wideout room to be good because they can't count on Toney and Rashee Rice as a rookie. So you can point at Rice and say maybe he'll get better, but I think Sky Moore is going to be that guy for me.
Jordan, my last question that we got for you, I got to ask about the Vikings. Is Justin Jefferson the only concern in this game? Like, is that basically it? I don't see them running it on the Chiefs. I see the Chiefs should be able to move the football. But Justin Jefferson's the best wide receiver in the NFL, and I think it's not even close. I'm kind of scared to see what potentially that he could do. Is that basically it for this game, or are you seeing it differently?
I'm going to be honest with you. I think Minnesota has a lot, and they have KJ Osborne as their third best receiver. They drafted Jordan Addison, who I was a huge fan of entering the NFL draft. TJ Hawkinson has done good things since he came over. So this is the Vikings team. Yeah, they're 1-3. Yeah, they're struggling in the NFC North, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were a team that we look back on at the end of the year. They make a run to finish maybe 9-8, and they're flirting with a wild card spot or maybe even the division, depending on how things shake out. They're not quite good enough to completely overcome this start, I don't think. And if they lose Sunday, they'll be 1-4, and that's incredibly difficult to climb out of. But this is a better team than people think, I believe, with how they started. And yeah, Kirk Cousins is the quarterback. You can only go so far with that. But Jefferson, like you said, best wideout in the game by a pretty comfortable margin, probably, despite how great Tyreek Hill is. But they got a little bit more on offense. I think the Chiefs are going to have their hands full defensively, and this is going to be another good test of what that defense can do.
Should they be able to move it and score it pretty well on offense, considering the Viking defense is struggling?
Yeah, I think so. You've got guys like Daniil Hunter, who's playing well. Ivan Pace is a intriguing linebacker, but they have the ghost of Harrison Smith, and then Byron Murphy, who, despite how much I like him, has never quite figured things out in the NFL in my estimation. So this one could be a shootout. I'm thinking like maybe a 34-28 type of ball game where both teams combine for quite a few points, and it's going to be one of the better games of the weekend slate, I have a feeling.
Jordan, as always, we appreciate the time. Have yourself a great rest of the week, my friend.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks a lot.
That is Jordan Foote, who covers the Kansas City Chiefs for Sports Illustrated. That's going to do it for the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, we've got more Chiefs to get to. What is wrong with you? And we'll hear from Michael Swain as well. It's all next hour right here on 580 Sports Talk.
3, 580 Sports Talk coming your way on this Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank Jordan Foote, talking all things Chiefs. We'll talk with Michael Swain coming up at the bottom of the hour, all things KU. Got what is wrong with you. No Royals baseball, but there is postseason baseball happening right now. 2 games, postseason baseball. The only game that matters, Rangers and Rays, whatever. Rangers are up 4-0, by the way. I don't want them to win because it's hilarious, the fact that, speaking of YouTube, fun fact, we talked about YouTube earlier today on the show. If you missed that, you can go to our website, go to our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, very easy. The Twins have never won a playoff game in the YouTube era.
Yeah.
The Twins have lost, and we'll double check as Dan will correct me. They've lost 847 straight playoff games, I believe.
I will double check that. I think that's a little high.
Okay.
But we're going to double check that.
I think it's 18, right?
George W. Bush was in his first term as president of the United States.
I think it's 18 years since the Twins have won a playoff game. Not a series.
A game.
Not a series. They've been swept every single time.
Swept in the division series in 06, 09, 2010.
Yeah.
Lost the wild card game in 2017. Lost in the division series in 2019. And then lost in the stupid COVID playoffs in 2 games.
Yeah.
So that is
6 straight series.
3, 6,
18 straight
9,
games.
12, 15 straight defeats.
15.
If you go back to 2004, they won the opener of the 2004 AL Division
So
Series.
18 straight.
So yes,
18 straight,
playoff losses.
That's crazy.
The starting pitcher the last time the Twins won a playoff game was Johan Santana.
I thought Bert Blyleven would have been a great guest, to be honest.
Frank
with
Viola.
Kirby Puckett's sitting there in center.
Well, the last playoff series they won was immortalized on film. They beat the Moneyball A's in 2002 in the American League Division Series, and proceeded to lose in 5 games to the Angels in the championship series that year.
The starting pitcher today for the Twins, Pablo Lopez, he showed up to Target Field wearing a throwback Johan Santana jersey.
They're both from Venezuela.
Yeah.
He was his hero growing up. Pablo Lopez's was Johan.
The Twins are up 2-0. So there's a part of me that I don't want the Twins to win to keep this going.
It's an amazing streak.
I'm with you.
That's
why I always cheered against Leonardo DiCaprio to win an Oscar.
Also, Brennan, I don't know if I've ever told you this, I was really cheering that the Cubs would not win the World Series.
Oh yeah, you've told me.
Kind of like you.
I've kept that filed away for years.
What was it, you or was it Fulton? Or maybe it was you that didn't want the Nationals to win because they.
That was both of us.
Was that both of you?
Because it was a funny gag that they'd never won a playoff series.
Yeah. And then they won the whole thing. Kind of like the Cubs have gone 100 and some years without winning the World Series.
I still don't want any team. There is a neighborhood that my favorite baseball team lives in called No Rings Neighborhood, where my beloved Rockies have never won a championship. So I cannot root for teams who have also never won a championship to win. So that means
the Brewers.
The Brewers can't root for them.
Padres.
Definitely.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah, they're the Padres. 2 of the teams playing right now, Texas and Tampa Bay.
Yep.
And Seattle.
Can't root for them.
No, I want them to remain in the no rings neighborhood. I don't want everybody else to move out and be all alone because the Rockies will never win a championship.
Dan, I also said that as well. And look what happened.
But the Royals had won a championship.
No, but like during my lifetime.
I think Dan is saying in perpetuity.
I'm saying in perpetuity.
Yeah, see that.
I'm saying I could live to be 1,000 years old and the Rockies will never win.
Dick Mofford will die eventually.
Yes, but his garbage sons will inherit the team.
So
He's got children that think and speak like the toilet.
So in some situations that is the case. Like the Chicago Bulls, for example, they're owned by a moron. His kid is also a moron. Unfortunately, Michael Reinsdorf is going to take over that team and is going to make the Bulls and the White Sox worse after he takes over the team.
Well, no,
which is unfortunate.
I thought he was going to sell the White Sox and they're going to move to Nashville.
Well, that's also certainly possible before he kicks the bucket. But on the other hand, you have the Chicago Bears. They are owned by Virginia McCaskey, who is 900 years old.
Yes, correct.
But she's going to live forever.
Well,
That's possible. There is a certain possibility that she does live forever. Should she not, her controlling stake would belong to her kids and grandkids. Those kids want nothing to do with owning an NFL team.
They'll take
nothing.
They'll take the paycheck.
They are going to sell it for every single penny it is worth to the billionaire minority owner of the team.
It'll be
Pat Ryan.
It'll be $7 billion.
So maybe it might be more.
Yeah,
it might be more.
Is the
minimum. Knowing they're already getting a new stadium in that market with that kind of history, yeah. So maybe Dick Monfort's idiot son will be like, you know what? I'm bored. I would rather go I don't know, run a sweatshop or something, and then he'll sell the team.
One of his sons is presently the director of scouting for the Rockies, and the other is in charge of marketing partnerships.
Now, see, this makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
Why the Rockies are what they are.
No,
this suddenly makes a lot of
completely
sense.
and utterly.
Nepotism is definitely flowing high.
Completely
in the Rockies
and
organization.
utterly and irrevocably doomed for all time, the Colorado Rockies. That's why I can't even get behind the underdog stories. Like the Orioles have won a championship. They're a wonderful underdog story, rags to riches. They lost 100 games 2 years ago. They won 100 games this year. But I can't root for them to succeed. Have you seen the meme? It lives on the internet. Maybe you folks are familiar with the meme. It's just a picture of a guy kind of scowling, and there's a big wall of text over his face. And the text says, "I don't care that something good happened to you. It should have happened to me instead." That is how I feel watching the baseball playoffs. Oh, you're excited, Milwaukee? I don't care. You're excited, Baltimore? That should be me. It will never be me for reasons I've elaborated upon.
But Dan,
it should have happened to me instead.
Hold on a second. I never would have thought that the Glass family would put together a World Series winner. I'm just telling you. Like the Glass family, when I was growing up, was a lot like the Monfort family, where it's doom and gloom.
They almost got there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think, though, that they made their money. The Monforts are just inherited. They're meat dummies who inherited the stockyards, and that's how they got all their money.
Well, I'm just not like money wise. I'm talking just baseball wise.
Yeah, these are
nobody
born
thought
on third
that
base.
David Glass was going to bring a championship to the Royals.
I didn't know he made stockyard money.
The Monforts did. Yes, born on third, think they hit a triple.
Yeah, that's tough. That sucks.
Yeah, I got nothing.
I was really unaware that his kid was the director of scouting.
That's hilarious.
Suddenly, things make a lot more
They
sense.
also drafted him out of high school in the 48th round of the Major League Baseball draft.
That makes a lot of sense.
Even Dayton Moore didn't draft his own kid.
Yes, and he was a legitimate prospect.
Yeah, he was good.
I have a hard time getting into the postseason this year because the way it ended for the Cubs was so ugly.
Not good.
And it just kind of deflated my enthusiasm. I would still have been into it if Abby's team was in, but the Mariners also gagged it away in the last 3 weeks of the year.
I was so excited. I was like, man, the Royals are going to keep the Astros from winning the division. They just swept them. And then everybody else the rest of the way just stunk, and they won the division.
Yeah, that's why the expanded
I hate the
postseason is
Astros,
bad.
by the way.
But at least, the Astros won that division. It's wild. When they lost 5 out of 6 to the Royals in a week's time, everybody was like, well, that's the end. They're going to fire Dusty Baker, and they're going to clean house.
Gross.
They got a bye. They got a first-round bye. So I guess nobody knows anything. Much more to come on the return of the playoff roundup to headlines in the 5 o'clock hour.
Yeah.
Minnesota Twins. I don't want you to win. But I like the Twins. Target feels great.
You like the Twins?
Well, the Twins.
This is what happens when your favorite team doesn't have a real rival.
I'm still bitter that the Twins beat the Braves in 91. I was a Braves fan when I was 5.
Yeah. How did that rotation lose? Come on now.
Jack Morris, man.
It is wild that if the Braves win it all this year, they will have more rings in this era than they did in the era where they just never lost baseball games.
Yeah.
Which is kind of incredible.
Yeah. Let's do a little overreaction, proper reaction. Okay.
Overreacting.
A highly sensible reaction.
Totally rational reaction.
An understandable reaction.
I overreacted.
Overreaction, proper reaction. The South divisions in the AFC and the NFC are a total coin flip right now.
A total coin flip.
Because everyone in the AFC South is 2-2. And in the NFC South, you've got the Bucks who are leading it, but are we sure that they're any good? So total coin flip.
So would another way to say this be there's no clear favorite?
No clear favorite.
I think that is a proper reaction.
Favorite.
I think that is a proper reaction. I think in the AFC South, we went into the year thinking Jacksonville was the clear favorite, but I think the way that Houston has played through 4 weeks has shown me, and the way that Jacksonville's played negatively through 4 weeks has shown me that there might be a division race in the South. And then the NFC South, yeah, no idea who's going to win it. And I can't even bring myself to care. That is such a drag of a division. Like, barely watchable football teams.
It's more so true for the South in the AFC because I think you can make a credible argument for any of the 4 teams. Like,
not in the NFC?
No, I don't think you can. The Panthers are bad. And, man, I got why they hired Frank Reich in Carolina. I thought it at least made sense. That does not sound like a guy who is very interested in actually coaching football anymore. He made a comment in his post game on Sunday where he was asked about a play where they had to call a timeout because they were going to burn off the play clock or take a penalty. And he said, yeah, I had called a play that could only go to Thielen, and then I didn't realize he wasn't in the game. And then by the time I realized it was too late. Dog, you're the play caller and coach. If you can't even pay attention to, I don't mean to make this a thing, but let's be blunt, like the one white player on the field, like if you don't know that he's out there, you should be paying more attention. Like, give up that responsibility if you can't handle it.
Is it one of those things where I don't know. I want to say this because I do know play calls come, you think of a play well before the play.
Right.
And is it one of those things where he called the play as Thielen was walking off the field?
No, I'm pretty sure Thielen was already out of the game.
Like he was out of the game with injury?
Or just not on the field.
Well, see, like it depends on when he went out there. Like I'm with you though. I just need
based on what I
details.
saw from Panthers fans, it was a pretty easy. You should have known not to call this.
Got
so the Panthers are really bad. And as interesting as Atlanta's play calling and personnel are, like I think they've got good players on defense. I don't know if it's a good defense. They've got good players on it. They've got really interesting offensive pieces. I like Arthur Smith's play calling. Their quarterback is garbage, and it just doesn't click. Like something is very off with that team, which makes the Packers losing to them even more infuriating. But Ritter can't play. He just cannot. So as long as he is the starter, they're not a legitimate chance. I think the Buccaneers have a real chance to win that division. I think the Saints have a real chance, although their offense stinks too. The AFC South, though, the Jaguars have the best roster, I think. I think they have the best roster, and they were the favorites. The Colts are the biggest wild card, I think, out of any of them, because if Richardson looks good, they can certainly win the division.
And so far, he has.
I think the Texans have been one of the most pleasant surprises in all of football, how good they've looked. By the way, here's a fun fact for you. The Texans have won back-to-back games by 20-plus points. The Minnesota Vikings have not won a game by that many points since 2019.
Wow.
And that's a team that every year is a playoff contender.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's how good the Texans have been the last couple of weeks. And the best coach in the division is probably Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel is the new Mike Tomlin. I believe that. Like, they are never going to be out of it just because he is going to, with brute force and sarcasm, get them to 9-8.
Yeah, I got no argument there.
Yeah. It's really, I love Mike Vrabel as a coach. He's one of my favorite coaches in the NFL, I think. All right, overreaction, proper reaction. The New England Patriots need to tear it down. They need
proper
to
reaction. Proper reaction.
I think that's proper reaction. You're not winning. I think you can firmly say they don't have the quarterback. Mac Jones is not it. He is hard to watch. He doesn't get the attention because Zach Wilson already gets the attention in that division for being the unwatchable quarterback in the first round bust. But Mac Jones, I don't see it.
It's over with him. Yeah, they need to start over.
And with Matthew Judon probably out for the year and Christian Gonzalez out for an extended period of time, it's going to get worse for them this season before it gets better. They are probably just well served to turn it over to the Zap man, Bailey Zappi, and just
zap him.
Go 4-13
him.
and start scouting quarterbacks.
Yep.
Imagine Bill Belichick coaching Shedeur Sanders.
That'd be pretty wild.
I think he'd welcome the chance.
I think there's a really interesting group of quarterbacks who's coming out this year. Caleb's obviously number 1. Drake May's number 2. I think
there was a lot of distress on Jake's face, and I couldn't tell what he saw, but he was just getting ready to sneeze. I think obviously,
No, Caleb Williams might not be coming out. No, he might.
The top two are interesting. I love Michael Penix. He's older and has an injury history, but I love that dude.
He's going to win the Heisman, by the way.
I think so, too. Sanders is a fascinating case. So I think there's a lot of dudes you could pick. But we remember the Patriots also in 2021, they drafted the guy who was considered last of the group of best quarterback prospects, and they ended up with Mac Jones. So it's risky. I mean, it's a crapshoot. We know that, but it would be interesting to see them with a better prospect than what Mac Jones was.
Overreaction, proper reaction. Josh Dobbs is this year's Geno Smith.
I'm going to say overreaction. I'm not sold on old Josh
Let me
Dobbs.
give you Josh Dobbs' numbers through 4 games. Josh Dobbs has completed 71% of his 123 passes for 814 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks. He's a big part of the reason why Arizona has looked as frisky as they have.
I like Josh Dobbs a lot. I that's a fun team. Like, that's a team worth watching right now. I think the difference for me, Geno, when he started his career with the Jets, it's not like Geno was bad. Like, it didn't work out for him, obviously. But also his career was largely derailed at the time by IK
and Impali
punching him in the face because Geno was a jerk. Like that. Let's remember that Geno brought a lot of that on himself, and that derailed a lot of his career because of that moment. But then when given a chance in the right system with the right personnel, he was able to take off again. Dobbs is, to me, like as a starter, Geno is clearly, I think, in the top half of the NFL.
And I think he's shown some improvement in the first 4 games. He's taken better care of the football.
That's important.
And making more plays on the move. Moving better in the pocket. Like, I think he's still improving. I mean, we're still seeing him evolve as the quarterback a little bit, which is pretty cool to see.
And he's good. He is solidly very good. I don't know that he can be a top 5 quarterback, but can you win a lot of games and make a legitimate run at a Super Bowl with Geno Smith, especially with the rest of that roster? If the defense plays like that, yes, absolutely. I don't think Josh Dobbs has that kind of skill set. I like him, and I think he's a good athlete. It's kind of underrated. He was pretty mobile when he was at Tennessee, which is a while ago now. So I think in terms of the story, like, wow, look at this guy. They're similar, but I think in terms of caliber of play, I think Geno is a step above Dobbs. Because the other thing, too, the Seahawks were good last year in a year where they were expected to be a transition team. They ended up being good in large part because, A, their head coach is awesome, but B, Geno ended up being above average. I don't think the Cardinals have any chance of getting to that point, which is not all Dobbs' fault either.
That's fair. Maybe it is a little bit of an overreaction on my part, but that's what the segment is for. I will say this is not an overreaction. Josh Dobbs is the best American male athlete with alopecia since Charlie Villanueva.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. Man, Charlie Villanueva, he was UConn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
UConn play a long NBA career.
Long NBA career, yeah. Good
believe
player.
He was the first player to get in trouble for tweeting during halftime.
Yes, you are definitely correct about that.
Coach says, I got to step it up. Something like that. He tweeted at halftime.
So funny. Yeah, Charlie Villanueva played for, what is this math, 11 years in the NBA. Yeah, Detroit and Milwaukee for the majority of it. Yeah, pretty good player. Over 10 points a game for his career.
Charlie Villanueva, March 15th, 2009. Into locker room, snuck to post my twit with 2 T's at the end. We're playing the Celtics. Tie ball game at the half. Coach wants more toughness. I got to step up. His head coach, the notoriously even-keeled Scott Skiles, had to tell him, don't do that anymore.
Scott Skiles. Let's get to a timeout here on 580 Sports Talk. On the other side of this break, we've got today's What Is Wrong With You, and we'll talk all things Jayhawks with Michael Swain later this hour, right here on 580 Sports Talk.
What is wrong with you time on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. Our winner yesterday was the best man at a wedding, I believe in England. I assume this was England. It was an English tabloid.
The story came from England, but the story was posted on Reddit, so we don't know
maybe.
its genesis.
Fair point. But a best man at a wedding who, during his speech, proposed to his girlfriend without permission and got their own songs played by the wedding DJ. And that led to other couples wanting their songs to be played by the wedding DJ. And it got so out of hand to the point where the bride and groom left early and no one noticed. I hate those people.
Yeah.
Truly hate them.
All-time wedding nightmare.
Today's new What Is Wrong With You stories are brought to you by Top City Metal Supply, who cuts the metal you need to your specifications. That saves time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal. Top City Metal Supply can be found on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Dan, what do you have for today?
So going to Florida, we go to Summerfield, and we meet 56-year-old James William Jubain, who was arrested for calling 911 multiple times over 2 days. On September 25th, deputies said they responded to a dispute between Jubain and his neighbor. Jubain reportedly tried ordering deputies to conduct their investigation as he demanded, like he's running the show.
Not how it works.
While deputies were still on the scene, Jubain began to call 911. Deputies said they explained to Jubain that if he had concerns he wanted to address with a supervisor, he could call the sheriff's non-emergency number. About an hour after the deputies left the area and continuing over the next 2 days, Jubain reportedly called 911 several times for non-emergency reasons. During one of his calls, Jubain told the emergency call taker, "You want to charge me with abuse of 911? Go for it." During another call, Jubain told the emergency call taker, "I'm going to keep calling 911 back. You can charge me all you want." So they did. They took him into custody and took him to jail. He's being held on an $8,000 bond. What are you going to do? Arrest me? Charge me with abuse of 911? Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do, bud.
Yes, correct. You are spot on with that, sir. Oh, man.
It's like one of the all-time great internet memes is that image grab from the news broadcast where the quote from the man being stabbed is, "What are you going to do? Stab me?" And that's what we have here. A little less stabby, but yeah.
A little bit.
Quote from man being charged with abuse of 911. "You want to charge me with abuse of 911? Go for it."
Okay. Enough said.
I got to wonder what the deputies were doing at the investigation to the point where he thought he needed a run point. Like, has he just watched so many cop shows, or do you think they were dragging their feet? Was he throwing lingo around? Do you think like he's watched Chicago PD a lot?
He's got all the jargon down.
He's got all the lingo.
It's 4200.
This is a 217. You need to get a 413 over here. Like, sir, we've got this under control. Like, yeah, we'll see. I'll call 911. Hey, that'll light a fire under you.
Oh, man.
Over and over and over again for 2 days.
For 2 days.
With the nature of the dispute between Jubain and his neighbor not elaborated upon, which is really disappointing because I really want to know. This is like, I parked too close to my mailbox, or if it's something a little less trivial.
I hope it's even more trivial than that. My story is also going to take us to Florida, to Lakeland, where a man managed to cause chaos over the course of 10 hours over the weekend when he climbed up a railroad crossing light pole and then just stayed there for 10 hours. The Polk County Sheriff's Office first sent out a traffic alert at 4:30 a.m. Sunday, advising people to stay away from the area around Main Street and Highway 92. This is 50 miles southwest of Orlando. The initial post said that a man was, quote, suffering a mental health crisis and that drivers should stay away from the scene and the roadway was closed. That in and of itself, difficult situation, very unfortunate. However, folks, we will shortly learn that is not necessarily what was going on in this case. Pictures captured from the scene show the perilous situation with the man 30 feet up, standing on the mast, communicating with emergency crews down below, but to no avail. They had to get the fire trucks out. They were bringing the baskets up to try to lure him down. No such luck. Eventually, 4 SWAT officers arrived and were able to bring him down from his perilous perch in a bucket and was secured on the ground at 2 p.m. Again, the original alert went out at 4:30 in the morning, and he was there until 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Before being placed under arrest for disorderly conduct, the 28-year-old man threw a plastic bag into the road. You'll never guess what was in that bag, folks.
Yes, I will.
Methamphetamine.
I've been doing What Is Wrong With You for 7 years. I know what was in that bag.
And according to the police reports, the man also exposed himself in a, quote, vulgar manner. He took his pants down. He flashed his genitalia at the police. This man is now being charged with interference with railroad signals, the track and other equipment, tampering with evidence, resisting with violence, possession of methamphetamine and drug paraphernalia, exposure of sexual organs, and culpable negligence. He was also issued a citation for obstruction of public streets. 4 trains were, quote, extremely delayed, and operations were disrupted for hours on end due to his actions. He was taken to a hospital for evaluation. He'll go on trial on November 7th.
Yeah, he must have had the good stuff.
Yeah,
in that little baggie.
So he got high on meth, climbed up a light pole, yelled at the police for 10 hours, eventually got pulled down, and then happened to pull his own pants down and expose his sexual organs.
A 10-hour standoff. He just wanted to be Mr. Conductor from Thomas the Tank Engine.
Man, when I was a little kid, I watched Thomas the Tank Engine all the time.
Oh, my brother was maybe the biggest Thomas fan in the world. We had like all the little trains.
Yeah.
Run around, little train set.
Yeah, I had a little mini train set. We had a little like mini seat Thomas like train where you could just sit on it and store things in it and be pushed around on it. Oh yeah.
The biggest trip was finding out that George Carlin, who played Mr. Conductor in the TV specials, was famous for some quite not child-friendly comedy. Learning that later on was quite a trip.
That was George Carlin?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. George Carlin was on Thomas the Tank Engine.
How about that? Wow. Wow, that's wild. Yeah, Mr. Topham Hat.
Yes.
Yeah, the fat controller. Yeah, man, loved Thomas as a kid. All right, who we got today?
I got to go with the guy who got charged with 8 counts of misuse of 911 after basically threatening 911 to come and get him for misusing 911.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
No drugs involved here, presumably. He was not charged with any drug-related offense. He was charged with being a pain in the ass on 911.
I'm still giving the nod for the week, though, to this couple at the wedding because I'm still mad about it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not over it yet.
That's going to take me some time, too. Yeah, very, very appalling.
That is, for the second day in a row, our winner in What Is Wrong With You. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Jayhawk Weekly with Michael Swain's up next on 580 Sports Talk. Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. You can find him on Twitter at mswain247. And, of course, all of his great work covering KU for Fog.net at that website address. He joins us every Tuesday at this time for Jayhawk Weekly on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Michael, let's cut right to the chase. How different would Saturday's game have been if Jalen Daniels had played?
Not a whole lot different. I think at the end of the day, right, in college football, and I think it was apparent in person, it was apparent on TV that Texas had the bigger and stronger guys in the trenches than KU did. Maybe it's more of a game into the second half, and maybe the final score is a little bit more flattering to KU, but I don't think there was really a realistic world in which KU wins that game. Texas is so big and so physical that I think KU, regardless, was going to end up wearing down in the second half, and it would have been a very, very tough task for KU to win that game, even with Jalen Daniels. So I think the inconsistency of the offense led to the final score kind of getting out of hand there late in the second half, but I don't think this is a game, watching how it played out in the trenches, that KU would have won with Jalen Daniels there, quarterback.
So was this a game then, with the struggles KU had up front? Was it a game that was just a bad matchup because Texas has so much size and just maybe a bad performance by KU on both sides of the line? Or does this maybe undo a little bit of the momentum we thought KU had in those areas?
No, I don't think it really impacts a whole lot in that regard, right? Texas is probably the second best team in the country right now, and there's no bad thing about going on the road and losing to the second ranked team in the country. You know, I think Texas is going to go on to the college football playoff, and I think they're going to give some of the other schools in the country a big run for their money. So I don't think there's anything bad in the way that the game plays out. I think that I look at it and it's kind of like a Jenga set. I made this comparison on our podcast on Monday, but basically, like, KU at this point in time can win a lot of football games, right? And that in of itself is huge for this program considering where it's been. But in order to win those games, the defense has to play well. The special teams can't make a ton of mistakes, and the offense needs to be able to control the clock a little bit. And then once you kind of pull out one of those Jenga pieces and it's already kind of teetering a little bit, then all of a sudden it kind of comes crashing down. And that's exactly what happened, right? KU had no ability to hold on to the ball, and therefore the defense couldn't get a rest. And then late in the game, those guys are already out there for 30 minutes, and you're going into the fourth quarter, and it's 100 degrees. It's so hot there, and they wore down. So I think it's one of those where I think KU still as a team can have plenty of momentum, and I've got some confidence that they'll be able to back it up this week, because I think they do a very, very good job of taking a season 6 days, 7 days at a time and really flushing past results and being able to move on. So I don't think this is a team that's going to go into this UCF game demoralized or licking their wounds or letting one loss become two. If they lose this week, it'll be because, UCF plays well, KU turns the ball over, and UCF hits some explosive runs. Like, it's not going to be because they lost to Texas last week.
And if you want to go check out that podcast Michael just referenced, head on over to fog.net, the football tab. If you go there, click on that. It'll be one of the first things down at the list that Michael did with Kevin Flaherty from 24/7 Sports over the weekend. I wanted to get to Jason Bean here because I feel, Michael, like the conversation around Jason has been really weird. Like, just a lot of fans and even some media members just kind of doing too much with him. And this isn't even just with this game. This was going into the year too. And I remember after the week one win, there was a lot of, man, these two are really close. Like, Bean and Daniels, they're almost the same. And I know Jake, our other co-host, had a friend of his this weekend who told him, man, I think these guys are almost the same quarterback. Like, KU doesn't really lose a step without Daniels. Well, I hear you laughing. Like, that's one extreme of it that I think is kind of ridiculous. And then on the other side, I saw a reaction after the game Saturday that was, this dude sucks. We only lost because Daniels wasn't out there, etc. Why can't we just get to a middle ground where we can say he's a really good athlete, it's a good option to have at a backup quarterback, and he's still a backup for a reason? Like, why do we have to do more than that with this discussion and this player?
Because it's 2023, and that's how things go these days, right? There's never a sitting in the middle, right? It's always one side or the other. And I think you have to sit in the middle on this one, because you look at Jason Bean, and if you're going to try and draw conclusions, about Jason Bean and use this game, your argument's already thrown out. Like, you're not doing it in good faith because Jason Bean had no week of practice, right? Jalen Daniels got the entire week of practice, and it wasn't until Saturday morning when he tweaked his back. Jason Bean learned he was starting 30 minutes before the game. That's not a lot of preparation, and Jason Bean looked like a guy that didn't get a whole lot of reps this last week during practice. So I think Jason Bean is a quarterback that Kansas can win games with, right? You saw it last year with the Oklahoma State game, and I think you've seen it during his time at KU that as the team improves, I think it puts more support around Jason Bean to where you can lift up the things that he does well, right? Which I think is hitting deep shots. And when he is on, I think you saw, especially last year, that he has a really good arm for getting the ball deep. And he's got a pretty good arm for making really strong underneath throws. I think the big issue and maybe the big area where he falls short compared to Jalen Daniels is the processing speed and the ability to see everything unfolding and understand, okay, if I take my time here, I can let this guy move across the field. And for example, like the throws that Jalen made on the run against Illinois, or the one to Lawrence Arnold on kind of the left side of the field, and then the one to Grimm deep down the field, like Jason Bean doesn't really make those type of plays because once it goes haywire, I think his first instinct is to look down to the second level and see what's going on instead of looking down to kind of that third level and beyond. So I think that's really the big difference. But now let's say Jason Bean starts this week, right? I think KU will have every shot to win the game because the running game is better. KU is much more physical along the offensive line. And I think you've seen UCF fade in some games this year. And I think the defense is better now too, where you don't have to worry about the defense giving up 50 points or 45 points every game, right? I think it's a situation where the team surrounding Jason Bean can allow him to have a lot more success. Now, obviously, I think KU's ceiling as a team is so much higher with Jalen Daniels because he makes the unscripted plays. And so it's just a situation where Jason Bean is a great backup. It can be as simple as that. Jalen Daniels is a great college football quarterback. Jason Bean is a good college football quarterback who is a great person to have as your backup. And it can be as simple as that.
Our guest is Michael Swain of Fog.net, joining us for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. Michael joins us every Tuesday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Check out his work at Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Become a subscriber and VIP today. And you can also find him on Twitter at mswain247. Michael, what part of the matchup with UCF do you think bodes best for KU? And what part of the matchup concerns you a little bit?
Yeah, I think when I look at UCF, I think the part that concerns me is how explosive they are in the running game. I think KU has been better at stopping the run this season, but I wonder with the dynamic athletes they have at the running back position, and we'll have to see if John Rice Plumlee plays this week. Right? I think it's still a little bit up in the air, and of course, maybe UCF's made the decision, but we don't know it yet. So with the quarterback situation being up in the air, I think they're going to try and run the ball. And they've been so good, right? I think they're the best or second best rushing team in the Big 12. So that's a concern just because that's their strength and they've done it against Big 12 teams, right? That's not something that has faded as Big 12 plays going on. Like they've done that. So I think that for me is a little concerning. The part where I think KU will be able to hold its own is in the trenches because, look, I think you're seeing this across those four new schools. They are struggling in the trenches. They can have some good playmakers. Like that BYU tight end is incredible. He's such a good player. And Cincinnati has some good, skill position guys. I mentioned the UCF running backs. Like these guys have good skill position players, but the ability to compete in the trenches for 4 quarters as a season unfolds is really challenging. And so I think for UCF, they've got some injuries now. They've got some guys that are banged up, and I think KU will be able to hold their own in the trenches in this game.
I want to pivot to basketball a little bit because Bill Self spoke with the media yesterday. It's been a while since we've heard from Bill. We're a couple weeks out from the late night at the Fog, so it is starting to get back wound up towards basketball season. What did you take away from what you heard from Coach Self regarding his basketball team? Was there anything that he said that particularly stuck out?
Yeah, it seems interesting that, he seems to be okay with the fact there'll be 10 scholarship players and they're going to still redshirt Zach Clemens, it sounds like. So really that number's 9. And I think we all know, right, that Bill Self, when it gets down to, he's going to play 8 guys. And I think he has a really, really good 8 guys. I think for me, I'll be interested to see what happens, obviously, mid-year, because he did bring up the fact they might look at some transfers, some international prospects to bring in mid-year. That's interesting. I've not heard him mention that before. And then I think the shooting will be an issue going into this year, because I think we saw it in Puerto Rico. The team did not shoot the ball super well, but Bill Self kind of, started to walk back a little bit, where he was down on the 3-point shooting. And then he was kind of like, well, maybe I overplayed how bad we're going to be. So I'll be really interested to see how the 3-point shooting goes. And I think another thing, Johnny Furphy, I think, is a guy of interest because of the timing of when he arrived. And it sounds like Self's pretty pleased with it. His teammates mentioned his IQ and being a good teammate and passing and cutting and slashing and all those things. But it sounds like strength will be the thing he has to work on, because I think you look at him in some photos, he looks like a guy that's a freshman in college who didn't really get a full summer of the weightlifting program. So I think strength will be an issue for him early on, but I'll be really interested to see how he evolves through the course of his first season and second season.
Is he a Christian Brown type prospect? Maybe not quite the shooter, but are there some similarities there in terms of frame and the need to add bulk as a freshman?
Sure. I think that's probably fair. I think they're both really good cutters, guys that can drive with the ball in their hands. Yeah, I like that comparison. I think that's pretty accurate.
Arterio Morris was removed from the KU basketball team last week after he was formally arrested and charged with rape. And Bill Self released a statement, and then all he would say about it yesterday was that he said what he's going to say about it, only that the process by which they chose to bring Morris to campus was vetted. And apparently he's going to stand by that process, and that's going to be probably the final word we get from Bill Self on that subject. Given Morris's well-publicized past, do you think that Self is taking enough criticism for how this ended, essentially? Because it is over for Arterio Morris with the basketball program. There's no question about that. And depending on the legal procedure, a lot more things could be over for Arterio Morris. But do you think there's been enough criticism for Self and his staff for bringing Arterio Morris to campus?
That's a good question. I'd say on the one hand, no, right? Face value, no. I think on the other hand, you need more details to be able to criticize, I think. And I think at this point in time, there isn't enough information to maybe poke holes, so to speak, right? He mentions the vetting process. Well, what exactly did that look like? Because if we're talking about someone here that had a domestic violence incident at, when he was in high school still, and how do you vet and make sure you feel good about bringing someone that has that past to campus? I think that's kind of the big question I'd have, and what I'd love to find out, and obviously we'll have to see if it ever comes to light. But I would agree. I think at some point in time, there are going to be a lot of columns written about it. And I think I kind of circle media day as one of those times when typically the national writers come in, and I remember seeing a few ESPN people come in before, and it wouldn't shock me if that's when that happens. But no, I think they deserve plenty of criticism for bringing someone like this in. And look, the fact that this happened a week within students coming back to school is just atrocious. And I think it shows that whatever vetting process happened wasn't good enough, or someone got lied to, right? And so it's one of those issues where it's also kind of hard to criticize right now at this point in time, because you don't want to do without the details, and then the details come out and then you look silly. So I think they deserve plenty of criticism for bringing him to campus. Obviously, if you're asking me, Michael Swain, I would say you never would bring someone like that to campus. You're Kansas basketball. You don't need to take risks. Second chances are great, but you're Kansas basketball. Your second chance shouldn't be right to the top. So I think that part of it for me is what maybe frustrates me a little bit, but I think generally the criticism will come and should come pretty heftily.
Yeah, and Michael, that's kind of where I am on this too. And I don't even know if this is a question as more as just like venting frustration, but like the job that Dan and I have here, like we very much tread on like actual journalism and also like opinionated and fan-based reaction to things. And like I can't separate the fact that I went to KU. I've been a KU fan for a long time. I have an emotional attachment to this school and want the best for it, want the teams to be good. And also like, how do you let this happen? And the frustration that comes with both elements of that. And it just, like, it's all out there. Like, even if, you're acquitted of certain things, or, the courts, whatever the court process fleshed out with the original case back down in Texas, it frustrated me at the time that they took this chance, this risk, like you laid out. Like, you're You're Kansas. You don't need to do this. And I agree. Having second chances is a good thing societally, to give people second chances and to, allow people to show that they have worked on things or improved on things as people. But that doesn't necessarily mean you get gifted a second chance to be in an elite college basketball program. It's frustrating because it feels like this was a very avoidable situation.
Exactly. I think you nailed it, right? This is very avoidable. And again, second chances are a good thing, right? People deserve them. But again, I don't know if your second chance should be shooting right back up to the top of whatever field, sport, just part of society that you're in. That's my opinion. People might disagree, but yeah, I think it's something that's just unfortunate. And, we'll just have to see. It's just hard to talk about. It's one of those things where I've got my own opinions and they don't necessarily matter in this instance.
One final thing I've got for you, Michael. It is on the basketball side of things as well. We've got just about 30 seconds here. Cooper Flagg, the number one recruit in the country this coming year. He has canceled his visit to KU. I know that late night was pretty much going to be the Cooper Flagg show recruiting-wise. How surprised are you that this fell through? I know he's been considered a Duke lean for a long time. Are you shocked that this fell through?
Oh man, shocked. Surprised, yes. Shocked, no. Because I think, deep down, you have to remember, right? If this does come down to shoe companies, right? That's what basketball still is, right? It's still a lot of shoe company stuff, right? And so I think it's one of those deals where, he probably is going to end up at Duke, and canceling this visit basically confirms that. I'm surprised he didn't just take the visit, though. Go see late night, go see Lawrence, build a relationship, see what it's like. But I think it just proves that he was going to go to Duke. And it's just one of those things where you got to get in the battles, and KU was in it, and they had their chances, and they did what they could. And in the end, the kid's going to go elsewhere. And I think that's just kind of how recruiting goes sometimes, especially at the top of college basketball.
Had a chance to go to the McDonald's with the fresh McChickens in Lawrence, Kansas, and he turned it down. Could have been just like Lil Yachty, and he decided to turn it down.
Hung out at the Hawk.
Yeah, you're going to turn down a night at the Hawk? Come on. Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks, does it better than anybody for Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. He joins us every single Tuesday at this time for Jayhawk Weekly on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Michael, we appreciate the time and the insight as always. Thanks so much, man.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Talk to you next week.
That's Michael Swain from Fog.net. Awesome stuff on all things KU. We've got 1 hour left of 580 Sports Talk today, and it's coming up after our national and local news. 1 hour to go on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He is Dan Lucero. We're with you until 6 o'clock today. No Royals baseball tonight. That's it for the year. None of that the rest of the way. But we do have some baseball to talk about. We'll get to that in our headlines here momentarily. We will also get to some NFL teams that are already cooked. They're already done. You can stick a fork in them. The 2023 version of these teams bought the farm. They're pushing daisies. They're dead. It's over.
Finito.
We will get to those teams coming up here in just a little bit as well. We're still taking your texts, 785-272-9429, and your comments on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is called, simply put, 580 Sports Talk. It's simple. It's just the name of the show. All you have to do is go to YouTube, search 580 Sports Talk. We will be the first result. Make sure you subscribe. Go check out the channel. Check out today's live stream, the comment section, and everything we're talking about, and posting over at YouTube or on YouTube at our 580 Sports Talk channel. Text line number, as always, 785-272-9429. And as you just heard, our keyword for this hour, yell, Y-E-L-L. That is our keyword for the 580 WIBW Ghost Your Bills contest. You can win $2,000 a day with that keyword. Now, it is only valid for the hour in which it is given. So here's what you're going to do if you want your chance to win $2,000 a day from your friends here at 580 WIBW. Get your keyword. Again, we just told you, yell, for this hour. Head over to our website, 580WIBW.com, and enter it. We have a post over at the website. All you have to do is click on it. There will be a spot to enter your word. By entering that, you will be entered to win our $2,000 a day contest. You must be 18 years or older to play. And again, it is only valid for the hour in which it is given to you. So the word yell is only valid for this hour. So head over to 580WIBW.com and enter the keyword if you would like to have your chance to win $2,000 from your pals here at 580 WIBW. All right, how about we get to some 580 Sports Talk headlines, and why don't we just dive right on in? It has been several months since we've gotten to do one of these, better part of 5 months, four, that's good math, 4 months at this point, since we have gotten to do this. It is time for another rousing edition of the 580 Sports Talk Playoff Roundup, because the Major League Baseball playoffs are beginning today.
Yes, they're happening right now. One game is already over. The American League playoffs are underway. You have the wild card series going on, which, a quick refresher for those who may have forgotten, these are a fairly new innovation. They started with the addition of the third wild card team last year. They are best of three series in which the higher seeded team hosts all three games, if there are to be three in a series. So there's no travel here. It's a best of three single site. The home teams are either the lowest seeded division champion and the wild card with the best record. So your 3 seed plays your 6 seed, your 4 seed plays your 5 seed. In the American League, we already have one home team who has lost. That's the 4 seed Tampa Bay Rays. They were shut out by Jordan Montgomery, Aroldis Chapman, and I do not remember who they used as their final reliever. I saw video. I know Montgomery started. I saw video of Chapman in the 8th. It was Jose Leclerc who worked the 9th. A 6-hit shutout for the Texas Rangers. They blank the Tampa Bay Rays 4-0. The Rays committed 4 errors in the defeat. They wore their Tampa Bay Devil Rays throwbacks. And if you dress like the Devil Rays, you play like the Devil Rays.
Yeah, bad
apparently.
vibes.
Yeah, real bad vibes. Bad decision.
Some people forget the Devil Rays were awful.
Yes.
They were really bad until the first year they rebranded as the Rays. Oh, wait, right?
They dropped the Devil and immediately went to the World Series. Yes. Immediately went from last to first in the American League East and won the American League pennant. Yes.
Their old uniforms were better, though.
Yes. Also noteworthy about the game at Tropicana Field today, the attendance, and not in a good way. 19,704, the attendance at Tropicana Field. I can assure you it seats much more than that. According to Baseball Reference and StatHead, which is the play index over at Baseball Reference, it's the lowest non-COVID year attendance for a postseason game in 104 years.
Yikes.
You have to go back to Game 7 of the fairly noteworthy 1919 World Series to find the last time there was a crowd that small for a postseason game. So empty Trop, Devil Rays uniforms, terrible vibes. I went on a radio program, a different radio show early this morning, and predicted the Rays would win the American League. I no longer feel real good about that. So that game's in the books. One game currently ongoing. They're in the bottom of the fifth at Target Field in Minnesota. And maybe the Twins are on the verge of breaking that 18-game losing streak in postseason games. Pair of home runs by Royce Lewis have lifted the Twins to a 3-0 lead over the Toronto Blue Jays. The Twins are the home team, the 3 seed as the champions of the American League Central. Toronto, the 6 seed as the final wild card team. It's Minnesota up 3-0. They're in the bottom of the fifth. Minnesota has a runner at first with 2 out. Bummed to see that happen to my fellow Grandview High School alum, Kevin Gosman, who gave up both of the home runs to Lewis as the starting pitcher for Toronto today. But game's the game.
Do you know who the only other Twin/Senator to hit 2 home runs in their first playoff game is?
Is it Harmon Killebrew?
It is not Harmon Killebrew.
Is it Bob Allison?
It's not Bob Allison.
Is it...
The answer is much funnier than either of those guys.
Is it Shannon Stewart?
No, that would have been funny, though. But you're on the right path. Also an alliterative name.
Jock Jones?
Not Jock Jones. A different alliterative twin.
Damn. Gary Gaetti.
Gary Gaetti.
Yes!
1987. Only other one to do it in Twins history. Twin/Senators history.
So that's the American League. Starting up in less than an hour, 6 o'clock Central Time, first pitch from American Family Field. The 3 seed in the National League, the Central Division champion Milwaukee Brewers take on the number 6 seed Arizona Diamondbacks. 84-78, the Diamondbacks this year. 84 wins got you into the postseason in the National League.
Too few. Remember the year the Padres won the West with 81 wins?
Oh, yeah. Remember the year the Cardinals won the World Series after winning 83 games?
Yeah, what year was that? Was that
05?
05?
Yeah. The Twins did it too.
No, 06.
Oh, yeah.
05
right.
was the
It
White
was
Sox.
06.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Twins did it too in 87. We're talking about the 87 Twins.
Yeah.
They won 83 games that year. That was the Dome Field Advantage World Series where they played the Cardinals and the home team won all 7 games. Yeah, so like it can be done, but Milwaukee and Arizona tonight, 6 o'clock. Philadelphia, Miami is the other series. Philadelphia, the defending NL champs. They're the 4 seed. Miami's the 5 seed. That's a 7 o'clock first pitch tonight.
Who you got in the National League?
The Braves.
Yeah.
I like baseball history. I don't know if you guys knew that about me.
A little bit.
That I'm fond of baseball history and talking about baseball history. I don't believe that we have had a true entry into the greatest team of all time conversation since the 1998 Yankees. There have been some great regular season teams that for one reason or another, it didn't happen for them in October. I thought the 2018 Astros were as good as we've ever seen, and they didn't even win the American League pennant that year. And then, of course, there's a little bit of controversy, let's say, hanging over those Astros teams of the late 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
The Mariners of 2001 won 116 games. They'd have been in the conversation if they could have beaten the Yankees in the ALCS and won the World Series that year. They didn't.
Remember when Lou Piniella blamed 9/11 for that?
I do remember Lou Piniella doing that.
Said it wore his team down.
And, like, it made sense. Like, as you were living through it, it kind of made sense. You look back on it now and, like, come on, Lou. But, like, at the time, yeah.
Are you trying to tell me that the team from Seattle was more affected by 9/11 than the team literally from New York? Come on.
I think there was a lift given to the Yankees in that playoffs. I think they had a lot of people rally behind them.
Yeah.
In a way that lifted them. I would not.
And then they lost to the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah, they did. They lost to Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling is what happened there. So we haven't had, back to my point, a real entry in the greatest team of all time discussion. And this year's Atlanta Braves, if they win the World Series, and you got to win the ring to be in the conversation.
Yes.
That's just how it goes. And it's harder now because the postseason's bigger. But if these Braves, who slugged as a team over 500
crazy
for a season, who hit, how many home runs they hit? 330 something. I'm on Baseball Reference right now.
The
Braves
that high?
No, 307.
Okay,
They
I
hit
was-
307 home runs. which
Tied
is
the all-time record.
Yes, tied the all-time record. It's a new National League record. If they win it all, I think you can put the Braves in the conversation, the 2023 Braves, as one of the greatest teams in the history of baseball. And so I am rooting for that. I am rooting for a new entry in that conversation. I say this as somebody who is not inclined to love the Braves, even though I was a fan as a kid. I did not like their 2021 team that won it all. One, I'm not a Jock Peterson guy. Two, that was not a great team. That was a hot bullpen and Eddie Rosario blacking out for a month that enabled them to win the World Series. And I don't like when fluky teams win the World Series.
Mhm.
It's much more narratively satisfying, for lack of a better way to put it, if the truly great teams win it all. But this is a truly great team. And Ronald Acuna Jr. plays for this team. He was hurt in 2021. He wasn't really a part of things down the stretch for the Braves. That's why they had to go trade for World Series MVP Jorge Soler. But Ronald Acuna Jr. plays for this team, and he is an electric factory. If you haven't had to watch him play baseball yet, you should watch him play baseball this October. You're going to love him. You're going to love this Braves team. They're awesome. I hope they win it all. Like I said, I predicted that they would win the World Series over the Rays. Back in March, though, I said they would win the World Series over Toronto. They also look in a bad way in game one of their playoff series today. So, but hey, at least my preseason prediction is still alive. Unlike a certain co-host.
Who did I say?
You had the Padres beating the Astros.
Yeah, I mean, Padres, they went in the toilet this year.
You did have the Padres beating the Braves in the NLCS. I'm looking at our predictions from
all right,
the opening day.
This is like the NCAA tournament in your pool now, where you're trying to think, okay, well, if I get every other pick right and they get every pick wrong, does the math line up for me to still get some money at the end of this?
So
and the answer is no.
I correctly predicted 8 of the 12 playoff teams and 3 of the 6 division champions. I missed on the Guardians, the Angels, the Padres, and the Mets. You had 6 of the playoff teams and 2 of the division champions correct.
I know I got the Cardinals wrong.
You missed on the Yankees, Guardians, Mariners, Cardinals, Padres, and Mets.
That's what I get for betting on the Padres and Mets. What an idiot.
It looks like you were bang on with the American League Cy Young Award prediction. You said Garrett Cole would win the American League Cy Young. I look like I'm going to be correct about American League Rookie of the Year Gunnar Henderson and American League MVP Shohei Ohtani. So I went 2 for 6 on my award picks. You went 1 for 6.
Who did I put? Red Sox outfielder as my Rookie of the Year, right?
Masataka Yoshida.
Yoshida, yeah.
Yes.
Pretty good year.
Yeah. Our National League Rookie of the Year picks, I went with Ezekiel Tovar of the Rockies, who had a fine year, but nowhere close to Corbin Carroll, who's going to win it. You had Jordan Walker for the Cardinals, who is a good hitter, and as an outfielder, he's a good hitter. I had Luis Castillo, the Mariners, for the AL Cy Young. Had a good year, not as good as Garrett Cole. My National League Cy Young pick was Corbin Burns. Good, not great. You picked Yu Darvish, who really fell off this year.
Yeah.
Your American League MVP pick was Mike Trout. Never a bad pick, but unfortunately got hurt. You picked Trey Turner to win the NL MVP. Second half Trey Turner might have won the MVP.
Well, and that was fresh off the World Baseball Classic
Yeah.
when he became Captain America. He had just gotten paid. He was going to have a big opportunity in Philly.
It wasn't a bad prediction. He just fell on his face the first 3
Yeah.
months. He was great the last 3 months. Austin Riley of the Braves was my pick. So I had the right team because Acuna is going to win it, but wrong guy. So anyway.
Not terrible.
No.
That was actually pretty good.
Yeah, we did all right. If you can identify an award winner combined, we got 3.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I'm happy with those. I've been more embarrassed, let's say.
Yeah,
by predictions I've made on this show.
That's certainly for real. First headline for me today, to a sport we don't cover a ton, especially when it's not playoff time, but the NBA. When the NBA came out with its new rules about load management a couple of weeks ago, there were a lot of people, myself included, who had one particular player in mind when it came to these new rules. Kawhi Leonard of the Los Angeles Clippers, who I genuinely believe does not want to play basketball. Like, I think he shows up to play a handful of games because otherwise he would make no money. But I genuinely don't believe he wants to play basketball. But there's other guys, LeBron has gone through it. Every other player on the Clippers, star players for most teams, really almost every superstar except Jokic, and to a slightly lesser degree, Giannis. They did 15 games a year, you're just not going to suit up. And a lot of guys, I guess Jokic load manages sometimes.
No, not really. There were some like last year they sat him when they locked up the one seed.
Okay, that's probably what I'm thinking of. Because they didn't have him travel to one of their last road games, right?
Yeah, but they had already locked up the 1 seed, so they were resting him. Yeah.
But you can guess that like Joel Embiid, there will be 15 nights a year where he's just not going to play. Don't even show up to the arena, Joel. There's no point in it. So Kawhi Leonard was one of those guys. You assume, this is probably going to apply to him. Well, at Clippers Media Day yesterday, the NBA does its Media Day with all of its teams on the exact same day. So every team in the league did their Media Day yesterday. Kawhi Leonard was asked about this new policy. Here's how in tune with his business Kawhi Leonard is. Quote, "What are they? I just don't know the policy. What is the policy?" The NBA created a whole rule about this guy refusing to play basketball games. He literally does not know what the rule is this year. That is how tuned into basketball this guy is. He's like, I didn't even know there were new rules. And then he went on to say he doesn't even believe these policies are going to apply to him, sharing, well, I'm injured, so it doesn't matter to me. He said that it would not impact him. He has denied that he has sat out because of load management, saying he's just got an extensive injury history, including an ACL tear, a lingering quad injury back to his days in San Antonio. And then when asked, do you feel obligated to play every game? No. I'm not a guy that's sitting down because I'm doing a load management. When I was with the Raptors, it was different. Like, I was coming off an injury. You have to know the details from the doctor. But if the league is seeing or trying to mock what I did with the Raptors, then they should stop because I was injured during that whole year. But other than that, if I'm able to play, I'll play basketball. I don't know, man. I guess it's only fair to take a man at his word, but I've seen you play like 50 basketball games total since 2019, so I don't really know that I can trust you with this.
Yeah, everybody wants to talk about how, it's scary hours for the NBA when Paul George and Kawhi Leonard team up for the Clippers. And I say, for like the 15 games that it happens every year.
George, by the way, for what it's worth, was asked the same question. And he said, when asked, do you feel an obligation to play every game? He said, absolutely, yes. And he says, I 100% agree with that, which is interesting. And I'm not trying to pick on this guy in particular, Kawhi Leonard. Well, I am, but I mean, it's a whole NBA problem.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like we talked about when the news came out, I agree that you should have your star players on the floor more often because that is like NBA fans already don't get a great product for most of the season. Like, you get a lot of high scores, but not a lot of great games during the regular season, and the entire league treats it as if it's a means to an end instead of the actual product. It is long. It's too long.
82 games is too many for the NBA. If you want a high quality basketball, you have to shrink the schedule, get rid of back-to-backs.
What would your number be?
No more than 70.
I think you could very easily do 70 and just space the games out a little bit more over the course of the year. Get rid of the back-to-backs.
You got to get rid of the back-to-backs. Those are just killer. Those are the kinds of things where you don't load manage somebody, then, they probably are going to get hurt. So even though that's a big advantage for the team I root for, because if the second game of your back-to-back on the road is in Denver, you are not winning that game.
No, it's just not going to end
flat
up
out
happening.
Not going to win it.
But so the players who this rule was created to address their issues, they don't even know that the rule is in effect now. That is, again, I don't mean
stuff.
I don't want to psychoanalyze the guy. I don't know him personally, but I do think it is worth saying, isn't this your job? Isn't your job to know the rules of the league you play in? Just my thoughts.
Meanwhile, the reigning NBA Finals MVP at his media day said that he did not enjoy his summer because he had to work for 2.5 months longer than usual.
Very on brand.
It's so relatable. Nikola Jokic is the best.
We have a question from YouTube. Would you like to address this one, Dan?
Question from Kyle asks, are they going to get Joel Embiid to play in Denver for the first time?
Has he really never played a game in Denver?
It has been a while. It has been a long while. I don't know if exactly, but he did not play. I think it's the last 2-3 meetings he has not played.
Wow.
Against Jokic in Denver. Now, they played against each other in Philadelphia, and Embiid had the better game, had a big fourth quarter, and they won that game in January, and that became the crux of the Embiid for MVP argument. He ended up winning the MVP because Kendrick Perkins went on ESPN and said everybody was racist if they voted for Jokic and not Embiid for MVP, and I think that swung the vote too. And now I don't care because Jokic won Finals MVP, and that's way more important. And Embiid's never going to win that, so anyhow.
Not the way that team is currently built.
No.
They're in hell. Or I guess it's more purgatory than hell, but they're in
James
purgatory.
Harden's not there right now, so that's great. Doesn't want to be there.
And honestly, I mean, does he change the landscape for them? I don't know that at this stage of his career, James Harden is a landscape changer.
He's going to go to the Clippers because that's where he wants to be. And scary hours, Harden, Kawhi, Paul George, they're going to play 10 games together and lose to the Nuggets in the first round.
Yeah, like Damian Lillard moving to Milwaukee, that is a move that moves the needle. That makes a legitimate change because now, like, Chris Middleton as your third best player is a lot scarier than Chris Middleton as your second best player. And they won a championship with Chris Middleton as their second best player. So that to me is a major move that will change things in the NBA. I don't really know what the Sixers are doing because Embiid, I love Joel Embiid, but he also can only play like 55 games a year.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
Next headline for me. Perhaps you watched Monday Night Football last night. I hope you didn't. If you did not have a rooting interest, it was a pretty grim football game.
It was ugly.
Seattle beat the New York Giants 24-3. The final score is definitely indicative of the gulf between the two teams. And Seattle, particularly offensively, did not play particularly well, but they won 24-3 because the Giants are dumpster juice. And as if to accentuate just how things are going for the Giants through 4 games. On their opening drive of the night, the Giants got to a 4th and 1. And of course, what is in vogue across the league now, because Jalen Hurts has made it so with the Eagles, is the so-called tush push or the brotherly shove, which I kind of like a little better. That only really works for Philadelphia because it's a city of brotherly love. I heard them calling it that on a college football game. I don't remember which one. It might have been Notre Dame Duke where they were calling it that. But anyhow, you know the play. It's a rugby play more than it's a football play. It's quarterback sneak where the quarterback gets pushed forward by 3 men in the backfield. And for the Eagles, it has been an automatic first down. The Giants tried to run it, despite the fact that apparently the Giants have not practiced the play.
I love it so much.
They did not practice the play and then put it in the game and said, hell with it. Let's run it on our first 4th and 1 of the night. They did not convert, and 2 players were injured and had to leave the game and didn't return. Rookie center John Michael Schmitz was hurt, and tight end Daniel Bellinger was hurt. Schmitz hurt his shoulder. Bellinger sustained a knee injury. Both undergoing tests today to determine the severity. So that's how it's going for the Giants. They try to run the automatic first down play, except they've never practiced the automatic first down play, so it wasn't a first down. And then they got 2 guys hurt, and then they couldn't block anybody, and they gave up 11 sacks. The New York Football Giants, everybody.
Daniel Jones is awful.
Yeah, he is really, really
He
bad.
sucks. And he's not the only one. He's not, and I don't think Dable did him any favors with his play calling last night.
Yeah, like I don't know what you would have done behind that, what anybody would have done behind that offensive line. They were down to so many backups. It was target practice. Once it got to 21-3 after Jones threw that horrific 97-yard pick 6, that was ball game, and it was just target practice for the Seahawks pass rushers from there. But again, Jones got them there because he fumbled twice. Or he lost the fumble that ended up being a short field touchdown drive, a 6-yard touchdown drive for the Seahawks, and then he threw the pick 6. He doesn't take care of the football. He's never taken care of the football. He's not all of a sudden going to start taking care of the football just because you gave him $160 million.
I said this last night when he threw the pick 6 to Devin Witherspoon, who, by the way, is just as good as he was advertised to be coming out of the draft.
You know, I said something like sarcastically after I was mad at the Seahawks defense after how poorly they played against the Rams in week 1. And I said something to the effect of, well, unless Devin Witherspoon is Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, and Michael Bennett all in one, he's not going to fix this Seahawks defense by himself. And then he had a game where he basically was all of those guys in one.
Yeah, he was awesome.
He was so good.
Absolutely awesome.
But
I had a point.
Back to Jones.
Yeah, Daniel Jones. I put on Twitter that he's great until he actually has to throw the ball. You don't want that in the NFL.
So that was something you want to say about your quarterback.
Like, oh man, he is scrambling all over the place. Oh, it's incredible. He can do so much with his legs. What happens if he can't run? You know what he does? He throws interceptions. He makes boneheaded decisions. He only threw 7 incompletions last night. I did not realize it. He was 27 of 34 last night.
Yeah.
And if you had told me he was 15 of 40, I would have said, yeah, no, that's right. That's 100% right. And he's just not a good NFL quarterback. I'm sure he'd be a great backup. In fact, he'd be the perfect backup. The backup who can run, nightmare.
Yeah.
Absolute nightmare fuel for a defensive coordinator if that guy is to come in the game.
Definitely.
But you cannot win anything meaningful with him.
One of my favorite YouTube comments ever, our guy Mark, who's in the chat a lot. We love Mark. Real positive guy. Mark doesn't have a lot of bad things.
Mark is a very positive guy.
Yeah, Mark doesn't have a lot of bad things to say about anybody. Mark weighing in. I agree, Brandon. Daniel Jones sucks.
Yeah, fact.
Undeniable.
100%. That is a perfect way to close out today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Coming up on the other side of this break, speaking of the National Football League, whose seasons are already done for? Who is out of the running just 1/4 of the way into the season? We'll discuss next on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Dan with you on 580 Sports Talk, October 3rd, 2023. Thank you for hanging out with us today. Tuesday, 2023. Get that all sorted out. We are now approximately 1/4 of the way through the season. We don't have an even quarter anymore.
No.
4 of 17. It's close enough. And we have a couple of teams who are still winless. The Bears and the Panthers. The Bears, by the way, are the only team in the National Football League to go winless during the tenure of Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy.
They are also the only team in major sports to not have won a game since Elon Musk completed the purchase of Twitter.
They are awful. Not that that's breaking news, but they are trash. And the Panthers are bad. They're not as bad as the Bears, but they're bad. They're very bad. You've also got at 1-3 the Denver Broncos, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Cincinnati Bengals, New York Jets, New England Patriots, New York Giants, and the Minnesota Vikings.
And the Arizona Cardinals.
Excuse me. I glossed over that. All right. So of those teams, which one is the one who you could most easily make an argument for that they are going to get back to contending for a playoff spot?
You know, normally you'd say the Bengals, right? But man, it has been so grim watching their offense the last 2 weeks. And the thing that makes them special is not that they are this overwhelming defensive force. Lou Anarumo is a great big game defensive coordinator, but that's not a defense that's just overwhelmingly talented, right?
No.
That's not a defense with, they got good players, even some guys who I would say are very good. Like I think Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard are very good players. They got some very good linebackers, but they're not an overwhelmingly talented defense. They are built upon the success of what they can do offensively with Joe Burrow and that stable of receivers. And Joe Burrow can't throw the ball hard or far or stand in the pocket very long or maneuver within the pocket right now. And if you have a quarterback who can't do any of those things, then what good are they? It doesn't matter how talented Joe Burrow is. This isn't Joe Burrow. He's a shell of himself. And the fact that the Bengals have played him the last 2 weeks shows you they think that even this version of Joe Burrow is their best chance to win over Jake Browning or their other backup. Reed Sinnett, I think, is their third string quarterback right now.
Yeah.
Who, frankly, I had never heard of before 2 weeks ago.
I remember him from being a practice squad, bounce around the league kind of guy, but I don't know anything about him.
So if the Bengals think their best chance to win football games is this version of Joe Burrow, then I don't know if there's a bounce back in them. They should win this week. They play the Cardinals, but maybe they won't, man. The Cardinals, they got that fire in their gut.
Who's got a better vibe right now?
The Cardinals.
By far. By far.
They've got a better win. Their one win is better. They beat the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's one of the best wins of any team in the league this year.
Their quarterback is playing better. They have been more competitive in every game than anybody expected them to be. Yeah, it's definitely the Cardinals have a better vibe. And that game's in Arizona. I mean, not that that's a great home field advantage. Anybody who's been there knows a visiting team generally takes it over. But if the Bengals lose that game, forget about it. And that is a game that I would not have considered to be a losable game for the Bengals before I watched Joe Burrow the last 2 weeks. And that injury isn't going to get better on its own. It's not going to get better if he's practicing all week, if he's playing in games, if he's taking hits. It's just not. So I don't know what to make of them. It's hard to even, because like if it did magically heal, we'd say, oh man, they'll be fine. Like if Burrow didn't have this injury concern and they were a fluky 1-3, I'd say so. But it doesn't feel like a fluky 1-3. It kind of feels like with this version of Burrow, this is who they are.
Yeah.
So it's not them. It might be the Vikings, but on the other hand, the Vikings were they can't keep getting away with this team last year.
They are no longer getting away with it.
This is the version of the team that's no longer getting away with it. They beat the Panthers last week. Great. The Panthers are 0-4 and Minnesota had to sweat it. Like that was not a routine win. They only managed 21 points. They've got to play the Chiefs this week. The Chiefs beat them. They're 1-4 and then forget about it. So if you're asking me who has the best chance to get to 2-3 of any of these teams, it might be the Jets.
Okay.
They're in Denver this week. And Denver's a tough place to go and play, even when the Broncos stink, especially early in the season. But Denver's been so bad. And if Zach Wilson can build on some of the positive things he did against the Chiefs on Sunday night, we just saw Justin Fields look like prime Dan Marino for 3 quarters against that Broncos defense. If Zach Wilson can go out and ball out and get some more confidence, and that Jets defense continues to play well, maybe forces a couple of more turnovers, and they get out of Denver with a win, they're 2-3. I think they can feel like, okay, we're back on track a little bit.
I think for me, I just can't get behind a team that's going to run Zach Wilson out there every week. I know they've got talent. I just can't put my weight behind him. I'm going to go with the Vikings because their schedule is so favorable the rest of the way. You can make a very easy argument that they have already played 3 of the 4 best teams on their schedule. They have a 1-score loss to the Chargers, a 1-score loss to the Eagles, a 1-score loss to the Buccaneers. Okay. They play the 49ers on October. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So they also play the Chiefs. They'll lose that game. They still have to play the Chiefs and the 49ers. Here are the other teams they play. They play all of their divisional games twice. The Bears twice, the Packers twice, the Lions twice. The Bears are awful. The Lions are probably closer to good than bad, but I still think there are some legitimate questions about them. the Vikings are good enough they could win a game there. I think the Packers and Vikings will split. They play the Saints, who have an awful offense and a defense that is suddenly reeling. They play the Falcons, who have one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. They play the Broncos. They play this wounded Bengals team, and they play the Raiders. That's a really crappy schedule.
Yeah, it is.
That's not a good schedule. So if this team got hot at some point, and I'm not saying they will make the playoffs, but of these teams that are 1-3, I think they are certainly the best of the bunch, or the most likely to at least have the chance to make a run. And it might be one of those too little, too late kind of things. On the flip side of this, who's dead? Like, who can we just say don't even put them on red zone? Don't even watch if they're going to be the local game. Like, who is it over for?
It's over for the Raiders.
Dude, Josh McDaniels gets dumber every week. I swear.
Look, he is an all-time dunce. Like when it comes to football coach, I mean, we have been blessed in our lives to see some really bad ones. We lived through Nathaniel Hackett. You know, we lived through Hugh Jackson as an NFL head coach multiple times. We have gotten to see some awful coaches. Some of you who are older maybe remember Rich Kotite. Like there have been some really, really bad NFL head coaches. But Josh McDaniels stands as one of the very worst of all time. And when he finally doesn't get to do this anymore, we will not see his like again. I really believe that. The combination of the hubris and the ineptitude that are just on opposite poles of the spectrum is just stunning to see. So it's over for the Raiders. It's over for the Patriots and the Giants because their quarterback situations are just untenable. And I don't think it ever really began for the Broncos.
Okay, I was waiting for when they were going to get in here.
I would say it's over, but it never really began for them. I mean, they don't have enough good players. We talked about earlier, a unified theory of dudes. The Broncos have no dudes.
No.
Maybe Marvin Mims is a dude. We thought he could be a dude. He's looking a little dude-ish in the 5 snaps a game he gets because the Broncos can't bear to take Jerry Jeudy off the field yet. And now he's sniping with local sports talk hosts. So things are going great for Jerry Jeudy. He should just go back to tweeting about like Big Bird scenarios and not tweeting so much vitriol at local sports talk radio guys.
So
what if Big Bird lost his job to Marvin Mims?
Josh McDaniels said after the Raiders lost this weekend, said that his biggest criticism of Aiden O'Connell, who it sounds like is not going to play any more than he possibly has to, the rookie out of Purdue. He said, Josh McDaniels did, quote, playing quarterback in our league starts with taking care of the football, and then continued to discuss that Aiden O'Connell was not careful enough with the football in their game on Sunday. Out of curiosity, Dan, do you know who leads the NFL in interceptions this year?
I do not.
With one fewer game played than any other starting quarterback in the league, it is Raiders' usual starter, Jimmy Garoppolo. He has 6 interceptions in 3 games. Daniel Jones now has 6 in 4 games. Matthew Stafford, Justin Fields, and Sam Howell have all played 4 games. They have 5 interceptions apiece. So Josh McDaniels' point for why he refuses to play Aiden O'Connell is that he doesn't take enough care of the ball. And he's going to go back to the quarterback who quite literally, among all quarterbacks in the NFL, takes the worst care of the ball. He is a moron. He's not a bad coach. He is a moron.
Yeah.
And he always has been. He has no idea how to coach a team at all without just saying, well, how did Bill do this? How did Coach Belichick do this? And because if it's not a former Patriot or it's not some BS about the Patriot way, he literally cannot do it. And the problem is he doesn't know what actually made the Patriot way what it was because he's not Bill Belichick and he's got a monkey brain. He's just an awful coach, a miserable, pathetic, awful coach. And I'm not like banging the table to get more Aiden O'Connell on the field, but give me a break, man. Your team sucks. You've got one good offensive player, man. Well, 2. Josh Jacobs is a good player. Him and Devontae Adams. Like, you've got nothing other than that, man. Why are you continuing to dig a deeper hole?
the contempt that he has for his players too. Like there are some coaches out there who you just don't think like their players very much. Problem I think Sean Payton has in Denver right now is that there doesn't seem to be any appreciation for any of his players. Why he's bringing in so many former Saints.
Yeah.
He added another one today to the roster.
Who?
I don't remember, but they did.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, go find Broncos transactions. They made a couple of roster moves today, and
I know Traquan Smith.
Yeah, they signed him to the practice
squad. Yeah. Okay. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Oh, Bradley Roby. Oh no, he's signing somewhere else. I'm sorry. I saw former Saint, and I just assumed he was going to the Broncos.
No,
my apologies.
Former Broncos. Well, no, it's Traquan Smith.
Okay, it is Traquan.
That was the correct answer.
Gotcha.
The further we get away from McDaniels starting 6-0 as the Broncos head coach in 2009, the more miraculous that feels.
All-time moron. And the Raiders are going nowhere. We got fans yelling at Mark Davis, and Mark Davis yelling back at him. It's just a very sad franchise right now.
It is.
A franchise that has a lot of pride and a die-hard fan base, and their owner is a doofus and their coach is an idiot. I do feel bad. I know Chiefs fans, you don't feel bad. I feel bad for Raiders fans. Their organization is just such a tire fire. Let's get to one more break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we know the quarterback K-State will be facing coming up on Friday. Begrudgingly, Mike Gundy has named a starting quarterback for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. That's next on 580 Sports Talk. K-State will play Oklahoma State on Friday night this week. So dumb. Get over yourself, Big 12. That's a high school football night.
I hate it.
Sucks so much. They'll play on Friday night down in Stillwater. 4:30 pregame coverage begins here on 580 WIBW. 6:30 kickoff for that game. Yesterday, early in the day, Mike Gundy, during his press availability, said he was not going to name a starting quarterback and that they would determine it in practice this week. And then literally in a matter of hours on his coach's radio show at a local restaurant in Stillwater, he said, okay, it's going to be Alan Bowman. He is going to start for my team at quarterback this week. Not great if you are going to make that decision so quickly after saying we don't know who it's going to be. And then one practice, you realize the other guys suck enough that you're going to put this guy back in there. You want to talk about a team that's got contempt for everyone, for their coach toward their players, probably the players toward each other, coaches toward other coaches, the program in and of itself toward its fans at this point. It's Oklahoma State football. That is a team that has a bad vibe all around right now. And I think K-State, fully rested, hopefully healthy. Sounded like Chris Kleiman had to say today that they're getting a little bit healthier. We'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald about that tomorrow. This is a team that feels like they're going nowhere fast. They're not going to bottom out, I don't think, because Gundy, even though I think the game has passed him by, is still too good of a coach for that, and his assistants are too good for that. But what is Oklahoma State football right now, and what do they want to become? Because I think they're going to get rolled over on Friday by Kansas State, and you're going to lose that game. You're going to fall to, I don't even know what they
would
are.
be 2-3. They're 2-2.
2-3.
I'd be 0-2 in the Big 12.
I just don't know where Oklahoma State goes from where they are right now. And I don't think, no disrespect to Alan Bowman, but I don't think there's anyone on the roster right now who you look at and say that's the cornerstone of the next great Oklahoma State football team.
He's completing 53% of his passes and 5.1 yards per attempt, and he's thrown 3 picks. He's been the worst of the 3 quarterbacks, really, if you look at it. But
even worse then.
Yeah. He's going to be the guy. They've managed to turn their one cool offensive player, Brennan Presley, into like prime Jason Witten. He has 15 catches for 98 yards.
Ugh.
Yeah, really disgusting. There's not a great history for K-State in Stillwater. I understand that's going to cause some apprehension for some Cat fans in our listening audience that should never assume a Kansas State win in Stillwater. And I get that. And it's a Friday night, so that's going to be an interesting crowd. I understand a little bit of trepidation, but Kansas State's program's in a much better place, and their team is in a much better place than Oklahoma State's right now. And there's a reason the spread is as big as it is.
What is the spread?
Believe 8.5. Might have even gone up.
All right, let's pull this up here.
Might even be 10.5. Or it opened there.
Kansas State is favored by 11.5.
Yeah, it's gone up.
It's gone up 4.5 points from opening at K-State -7.
Not coincidentally, Oklahoma State announced a starting quarterback this week. When they announced it was Alan Bowman, this is what the line did.
So right now, according to Vegas Insider, 96% of money bet on this game has been bet on the K-State spread. Or 96% of spread money has been bet on K-State.
Wow.
Oklahoma State, somewhere between +7 and +11.5, is getting 4% of dollars bet on this game. 4%.
I mean, if they were capable of losing to South Alabama by 26 at home, then they probably ought to be capable of losing to Kansas State at home, too.
I sure think so. I would sure think so. That's coming up on Friday. We'll talk more about that game coming up tomorrow with Tim Fitzgerald. Right now, though, we have one final break to get to on 580 Sports Talk. We'll come back and wrap things up with the final word. Let's wrap up 580 Sports Talk with the final word, Dan.
I have only this to say. You saw the future of the National Football League last night. It was Devin Witherspoon coming for your neck, coming for your soul, coming for your football. He's the truth. He made me feel young again watching Seahawks defense play like that, even against a crummy Giants offense. Thank you, Devin Witherspoon, for putting a hop in my step and getting the Seahawks to 3-1.
Final word for me today. This is probably the last we'll get to this, at least before media day and maybe after that as well, because KU doesn't seem interested in talking about it anymore. Some feet need to be held to the fire regarding the Arterio Morris situation at KU. I know he's off the team. I know he's not coming back. I understand that ship has sailed, but there were way too many red flags at the time when he was brought in. I was worried about it at the time. I know I was. I put it out there that I was. I was hoping that maybe this second chance would turn out better. And when it didn't, I really do believe there need to be some serious questions asked about the vetting process and about bringing a person like that into the program that, to be frank, as much as I love the program and love the people around it, I don't think have been answered to a satisfactory degree as of yet. We'll be back tomorrow with a full show from 2 until 6. We'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald, among others, coming up on tomorrow's show. Until then, for Jake LeBon, for Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. This is 580 Sports Talk.